doesn't own you. Discipline does. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. We're doomed. You're already dead if you believe that. The rest of us, we fight.
What happens when an entire plane becomes prey in the night sky? And one voice turns fear into survival? In the next hour, you'll discover the truth about endurance, justice, and the strength we never knew we had. If you believe in stories that matter, subscribe, and join us here, where every tale fights for life and for justice. On Flight Aurora 177, the woman everyone ignored was the only one who could save them. The cabin hummed with ordinary life. Passengers shuffled bags into overhead bins. A baby fussed, then quieted against her mother's chest. A businessman barked into his phone until the flight attendant reminded him to switch it off. The scent of recycled air and faint coffee blended into the kind of atmosphere that lulls most travelers into forgetting they are 30,000 feet above an ocean. In the middle of row 23, squeezed between a teenager glued to his gaming console and a woman flipping through a glossy magazine, sat Dr. Maya Johnson. To the other passengers, she looked like just another tired professional, hair tied back without care, posture slouched, travel blanket folded neatly in her lap. She said little, only nodding politely when the flight attendant offered water. No one noticed the way her eyes flicked toward every sound, every shift in cabin tone. No one recognized the stillness of a soldier who had once flown rescue helicopters through enemy fire. To them, she was simply invisible. The teenager beside her sighed loudly when Maya adjusted in her seat, as if her very presence inconvenienced him. The woman with the magazine barely shifted to allow her arm room on the shared rest. Even the attendant's smile held the faint impatience often reserved for passengers assumed to be plain, unremarkable, undeserving of attention. Maya let it all pass. Years of discipline had taught her silence could be stronger than confrontation. Yet beneath the calm surface, memories stirred. The radio chatter of combat missions, the metallic taste of fear in her mouth as she steadied a shaking aircraft, the voices she had saved and the ones she had lost. She folded her hands, steady, quiet, waiting. The captain's voice soon crackled overhead. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard Aurora 177. We'll be cruising at 35,000 feet, direct service to Lisbon. Estimated flight time, 7 hours and 50 minutes. The passengers relaxed. Seatbelts unclicked. Conversation rose again, weaving into a low drone of comfort. But comfort has a way of lying. At the edge of the cabin, two men exchanged glances that were too sharp, too deliberate. A bag was shoved under a seat with more force than necessary. A faint rattle echoed from beneath the floorboards near cargo storage. None of it registered to the others, but Maya noticed. Her breathing slowed. Her mind cataloged every detail. Training never really left. She leaned forward slightly as if stretching her back, scanning the aisle, the exit doors, the pattern of the crew's movements. Still, when she shifted in her seat, the magazine reader beside her gave a dismissive laugh. "You nervous about flying? Don't worry, honey. Planes hardly ever fall out of the sky." The words dripped with condescension, the way strangers dismiss each other when they believe they are safer, wiser, better. Maya only nodded, lips pressed thin. If only they knew, but revealing who she was, or had been, would change nothing yet. People rarely believed the quiet woman in the middle seat carried more battle scars than the arrogant voices filling first class. So she said nothing. What mattered was what she saw outside the window. The wingtip shuddered ever so slightly, a vibration out of rhythm with the steady hum of engines. The sky itself seemed to ripple, a distortion that set her instincts buzzing. Something was wrong, and still no one cared that she noticed. The attendants pushed the drink cart with rehearsed smiles. The businessman already drifted into restless sleep. The hum of conversation swelled again, oblivious. Maya leaned back. She closed her eyes, but not in rest. In preparation, because every instinct told her this flight would not end as expected. And when the moment came, when panic ripped through the cabin and the sky itself turned hostile, She would have to decide whether to stay invisible or to stand. The irony stung like a private joke. The one person able to steer chaos into survival was the one person everyone dismissed. A woman written off as weary, unremarkable, expendable. She exhaled slowly, steadying her pulse. No one on Aurora 177 knew the truth. Not yet, but what happens when the only person strong enough to act is the one nobody believes in? The hum of the cabin deepened as Aurora 177 climbed higher, piercing clouds that scattered sunlight across the ocean below. For most passengers, it was routine. Another long flight, another blur of movies, snacks, and restless naps. But for Dr. Maya Johnson, the rhythm of the aircraft was a language. Every vibration, every flicker of turbulence, every unnatural sound translated into meaning. Something was wrong. She shifted slightly, tilting her head toward the floor. There it was again, the faint rattle from the cargo hold, not in sync with the engines. A loose panel could sound like that. So could something far more dangerous. Maya considered alerting the crew, but hesitated. She could already imagine the look, the polite smile that masks dismissal, the quiet thought, another anxious passenger exaggerating shadows. She had seen it before too many times, and the truth was she looked ordinary. No uniform, no insignia. Just a black woman traveling alone, her credentials buried in a life she had long since stepped away from. The flight attendant rolled by with the drink cart, offering sodas and small bottles of wine. When Maya asked if anyone had reported a noise from below, the attendant's brows arched with thin patience. "Everything's fine, ma'am. Sit back and enjoy the flight." The words were gentle but edged with condescension, like a parent soothing a child's fear of thunder. The cart rattled away before Maya could reply. Her jaw tightened. Years of military command, hundreds of missions flown, medals tucked away in drawers. None of it meant anything here. She was invisible again. From across the aisle, a man in a tailored suit smirked. Some people shouldn't travel if they can't handle a little turbulence. A few passengers chuckled softly, as if to reassure themselves. Maya said nothing. She simply folded her arms, letting the insult hang. It wasn't worth answering, but her eyes kept moving. Row 38 caught her attention. A tall man with a rigid posture adjusted his jacket twice in quick succession. His eyes flicked toward the rear exit, then back to the cabin crew. Subtle, too subtle. She recognized the discipline of someone trained to watch without being seen. And the bag at his feet, it hadn't been scanned when he boarded. She remembered him slipping through in the confusion of families juggling strollers and luggage. Details others missed. Details she never could. Her heartbeat steadied, not from fear, but from recognition. She had seen men like him before. In briefing rooms, in hot zones, in places where every second decided life or death. Maya glanced at the watch clasped to her wrist. Only 40 minutes into a flight that would stretch nearly 8 hours. Plenty of time for small details to grow into something far larger. The gaming console beeped beside her. The teenager groaned at his losing streak. The woman with the magazine sighed dramatically when Maya shifted again. Every movement she made seemed to irritate them. "Could you sit still?" the woman hissed. "Some of us are trying to relax." The words landed like a slap. Not sharp. Not brutal, but soaked in the casual arrogance of strangers who assume they know you by a glance. Maya inhaled once, then exhaled, her discipline a shield against pettiness. If only they knew. The captain's voice broke over the intercom again. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're reaching cruising altitude. Weather ahead looks clear. Sit back, enjoy the service." Yet outside the window, Maya saw something the captain hadn't mentioned. A distant glint, small but persistent, trailing just far enough to avoid notice. Not another commercial jet, too low, too deliberate. Her chest tightened. Memory snapped into place, escort maneuvers, radar locks, the cold grip of hostile pursuit. She blinked, steadying herself. Could it be coincidence? Possibly. But instinct had carried her through combat zones, and instinct now whispered louder than reassurance. Across the aisle, the tall man in row 38 reached down, fingers brushing the hidden bag. Quick, practiced, almost casual, if not for the faint stiffness in his shoulders. Maya looked away before his eyes could meet hers. She leaned back, forcing calm into her posture, though every nerve screamed readiness. No one else saw. No one else cared, but she knew. Something was coming. The cabin still laughed, still sipped sodas, still believed they were safe. Maya folded her blanket across her knees, her voice silent, but her mind alive with one searing truth. The storm was closer than anyone realized, and when it broke, the question was simple. Would she remain the invisible woman, or reveal the warrior no one expected? The quiet hum of Aurora 177 masked the first ripple of unease. It began with a flicker. Lights overhead dimmed for half a second, then steadied again. Most passengers didn't notice, lost in movies or drifting into shallow naps. But Maya noticed. Pilots are trained to hear silence as much as sound, to read absence as clearly as presence. That half-second blackout meant more than a glitch. Her pulse sharpened. She turned her gaze toward the cabin crew. One attendant frowned at the control panel, tapped a switch, then forced a smile back onto her face. Reassurance is part of the job. Reassurance can also be a lie. The suited man across the aisle smirked again. See, just bad wiring. Nothing to worry about. His tone oozed satisfaction, as if mocking her vigilance. Maya let his words roll off, though they lodged in her ribs like stones. Once again dismissed. Once again told to sit quietly, to trust others, to believe appearances. But appearances had killed people before. She remembered missions where trusting the wrong silence meant burning wreckage, folded flags, unanswered questions for grieving families. She leaned slightly, studying row 38 again. The tall man had shifted in his seat. His jacket now bulged at an unnatural angle. He whispered something to the passenger beside him, too low to hear, too pointed to be casual. Her instincts screamed. Still, she hesitated. If she stood now, if she announced what she suspected, the cabin would turn on her. A lone woman disrupting calm, accusing strangers, making everyone uncomfortable. She had lived that scene before. It never ended well, and so she stayed seated, but her mind prepared. Every exit mapped, every face catalogued, every possibility calculated against the limited space of a metal tube in the sky. The intercom crackled again, but this time the captain's voice carried strain. Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing minor technical interference with our communications. Nothing to be concerned about. Please remain seated while we investigate. The words minor and nothing were chosen carefully. Too carefully. Maya knew better. Interference at this altitude, on this route, was no accident. She pressed her hands together, grounding herself. Memories surged, rotor blades whipping above her, sandstorms blinding her view, voices in her headset screaming coordinates. In those moments, she had learned, hesitation saves no one. The woman with the magazine huffed beside her. Are you seriously sweating over a few lights? Relax. The professionals up front know what they're doing. The dismissal cut deeper than the turbulence that suddenly jolted the plane. Drinks spilled, gasps rippled through the cabin, a baby wailed, and for the first time, the steady hum of confidence cracked into nervous chatter. Maya didn't move. She steadied her breathing, eyes locked on the wing outside. The vibration had worsened. The glint in the distance still trailed them. Closer now, unmistakably deliberate. She whispered under her breath, words no one else could hear. They're not just watching. They're waiting. The suited man caught her murmur, chuckled low. Paranoid much? Maybe you should stick to bus rides. The laughter from nearby passengers joined his, thin and nervous, as though ridiculing her could make their own fear vanish. Maya absorbed it, let it fuel her resolve. Every sneer, every word of condescension became armor, because when the moment arrived and she felt it rushing closer, they would finally see. The plane shuddered again, sharper this time. Oxygen masks rattled against their housings, though they did not drop. The captain's voice returned, too calm to be real. Just a pocket of rough air, folks. Please remain in your seats. Maya's eyes narrowed. Rough air didn't explain interference. It didn't explain the shadow growing in the sky behind them. She closed her eyes, just for a moment. She could almost hear rotors again, the crack of gunfire, the pleading voices of those who needed her. The past was not gone. It was only waiting for the sky to call her back, and the sky was calling now. Her hands tightened on the armrests, steady, unshaking. She could feel the moment bending toward crisis. She could feel the weight of 240 lives pressing invisibly against her shoulders. The cruel irony lingered like smoke. They mocked her, ignored her, treated her as irrelevant. Yet she was the only one prepared to act when the facade shattered. The cabin remained blind. Passengers sipped their sodas, flicked through their movies, clung to their illusions. But Maya knew. The storm was not hours away. It was minutes. The sky beyond Aurora 177 glowed in fractured hues, deep blue fading into the pale horizon. Inside the cabin, passengers drifted into routines of long-haul travel. Headphones in, blankets pulled tight, boredom setting in like a quiet fog. Only Maya remained alert. She leaned slightly toward the window, gaze locked on that distant glint in the sky. It had grown larger, clearer, refusing to vanish with rational explanations. It wasn't another passenger jet on a different route. It wasn't a stray reflection. It was following. Her training whispered in patterns. Shadow aircraft, pursuit formation. The kind of maneuvers she once practiced only now directed at her plane. The unease she carried alone deepened. She shifted again, earning another irritated sigh from the woman with the magazine. "Honestly, you're like a restless child," the woman muttered. "Can't you just relax?" Maya didn't answer. She had learned long ago that those who underestimated her were easier to protect when the time came. The captain's voice returned over the intercom. Calm, but thinner than before. "Ladies and gentlemen, you may notice some turbulence ahead. Please keep seatbelts fastened while we navigate through." But there were no storm clouds outside. The horizon stretched clear, peaceful. The turbulence was not weather. It was warning. From row 38, the tall man reached down once more. This time, Maya caught the faint outline of metal beneath his jacket. Her chest tightened, breath measured. Weapons on board, confirmation. The universe rarely offered certainty so early. Yet here it was, plain as the weight of gravity. Aurora 177 was not just another flight. It was prey. Still, she said nothing. Not yet, because to act too soon would mean being dismissed again. Worse, it could alert the wrong people, spark chaos before she had the chance to steer it. Timing mattered. Timing could be the difference between panic and survival. She waited. The attendants rolled carts back toward the galley, smiles rehearsed, but eyes unsettled. One whispered quickly to another before vanishing behind the curtain. Passengers noticed, even if they pretended not to. Silence spread in the spaces between conversations. Then came the first real jolt. The aircraft lurched left, sharp enough that drinks toppled and seatbelts strained. Gasps rippled through the rows. The baby screamed again. The captain's voice returned, firmer, as though pushing against a rising tide. "Remain calm. We are managing a minor systems issue." But his tone betrayed him. Maya had heard it before. The forced steadiness of a leader hiding the magnitude of a problem. Her palms pressed together, fingers interlacing, a habit from countless briefings before missions. She scanned again. Exits, attendants, suspicious figures, passengers too calm for the chaos around them. The suited man across the aisle smirked, almost pleased. "Guess you were right to worry, sweetheart. But let the professionals handle it." The words dripped with condescension, meant to belittle, to reassert control. Maya turned her head slowly, meeting his eyes without blinking. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. Her silence carried more weight than any argument. The cabin trembled again, longer this time. Oxygen masks swayed like pendulums. The movie screens flickered. Somewhere near the cockpit, a panel alarm beeped. Short, sharp, insistent. Passengers began whispering, voices thick with nervous denial. "What's happening?" "Just turbulence, right?" "Planes are built for this, aren't they?" Maya's instincts screamed louder than their voices. This was not turbulence. This was interference. Deliberate. Coordinated. Her breath deepened. Slow. Controlled. She could feel the old self rising, the pilot, The commander, the soldier who had faced skies more dangerous than this. She had buried that identity for years, folded it away like uniforms left to dust. But now, in the claustrophobic cabin of Aurora 177, it surged back to life. She closed her eyes for one steadying beat, then opened them again, sharper, clearer. The world might still dismiss her, but when the truth tore through the clouds, they would have no choice but to see. Because the question was no longer if, it was when. And when it came, she would be ready. The night sky stretched wide, painted in deep violet. Stars glimmered faintly, as if keeping secrets only they understood. On Flight 981 from New York to Paris, more than 200 passengers shuffled to their seats, the sound of rolling luggage, children crying, flight attendants calling out instructions. It all blended into the kind of noise that feels ordinary, almost comforting. In seat 28B sat a woman, quiet and unremarkable at first glance. Her name was Maya Tran. A gray hoodie covered her head, her face half hidden in its shadow. She had chosen the middle seat, the one nobody wanted, the one designed for disappearing. On her left, an elderly woman leaned closer. "Traveling for work, dear." Maya smiled faintly. "Just visiting." On her right, a young businessman typed furiously on his laptop. From time to time, he shot her a sideways glance, the kind people give when they think. They already know your story. A tired woman. Alone. Nothing special. But no one knew the truth. The woman trying so hard to blend into the background had once commanded the skies. She was a decorated pilot, a survivor of missions where every second meant life or death. That life was gone now. Buried under years of silence, she had chosen to disappear. The captain's voice cut through the cabin. "Welcome aboard. We're expecting a smooth flight, clear skies. Sit back and relax." Passengers exhaled, already reaching for headphones and blankets. Maya closed her eyes, letting her breath steady. Peace can be fragile. It can shatter before you even realize it was there. As the aircraft taxied, a man at the back of the cabin drew her attention. Tall, lean, wrapped in a dark coat, he hunched over a heavy bag. He kept his head down, movements tight, controlled. Maya tilted her head slightly. She wasn't sleeping. She was listening. A click. Sharp. Metallic. It came from the overhead bin above him. To everyone else, it was nothing. To her, it was a sound she knew too well. The plane lifted from the ground. New York shrank into a sea of lights beneath the wing, fading into the horizon. Around her, people settled into their routines, movies, naps, hushed conversations, but Maya's eyes opened again. The calm on her face betrayed nothing, yet inside she was already bracing for what the others could not see. She whispered to herself, her voice barely audible. Tonight won't be quiet. The cabin glowed in its fragile illusion of safety, but illusions never last. What happens when the most ordinary passenger on board is the only one capable of saving everyone else? Would you notice her? Would you believe her? Or would you dismiss her until it was far too late? The cabin settled into rhythm as Flight 981 climbed higher, leaving the glitter of New York far below. Passengers adjusted pillows, flicked through movie selections, and unwrapped snacks, each sinking into their own cocoon of comfort. Only Maya stayed alert. Her body seemed relaxed, but her senses stretched sharp as wire. Every vibration of the fuselage, every faint rattle of the overhead bins, every change in engine hum carried meaning, and there it was again, a rattle, faint, offbeat, coming from the cargo hold beneath them. She shifted in her seat. Leaning slightly forward, her instinct whispered, "Not turbulence." Not random. For a moment, she considered telling a flight attendant, but she already knew how that would go. A smile, polite and dismissive, a nod, then a quick retreat, leaving her labeled as anxious passenger. That was the curse of being invisible. Her past meant nothing here. No medals, no missions. No nights spent guiding a trembling aircraft through fire. All anyone saw was a tired woman in a hoodie. The drink cart rattled past. "Anything for you, ma'am?" the attendant asked with forced brightness. There's a noise below, Maya replied evenly. Like a loose panel. The attendant blinked, then pasted on another smile. Everything's fine, ma'am. Just sit back and enjoy your flight. And then the cart rolled away. Across the aisle, a man in a sharp suit chuckled. Some people really shouldn't fly if they're this jumpy. A few nearby passengers laughed softly, the kind of laughter used to reassure themselves more than anyone else. Maya remained silent. She had no interest in convincing them, but her eyes kept scanning. Row 38. The tall man with the dark coat adjusted his jacket again, too precise. Too controlled. His hand brushed the hidden bag at his feet, the motion quick, practiced. Maya felt her chest tighten. That wasn't just luggage. The minutes ticked on. The plane reached cruising altitude. The captain's voice hummed through the speakers. Weather looks clear ahead. 7 hours to Paris. Sit back and relax. Passengers did just that. But Maya noticed something the captain hadn't mentioned. Through her window, far beyond the wing, a flicker of light. Small, distant, yet steady. Not another jet on a different route, too low. Too deliberate. Her mind raced. Shadow pursuit. A tactic she had studied, flown against, survived. She shifted in her seat again. The woman with the magazine snapped at her. Can you sit still? Some of us are trying to relax. Maya didn't answer. If only they knew. If only they understood the storm pressing closer with every passing mile. The engines droned on. Steady. The cabin buzzed with quiet chatter, but Maya heard something else. Louder than all of it. Her instincts. And they told her the truth. This flight was being watched, followed. And when the sky finally broke, every soul on this plane would look to someone for answers. They just didn't know yet that the someone was her. The calm never lasted. It began with a flicker. The lights overhead dimmed, hesitated, then steadied again. Most passengers missed it, their heads bent toward screens. Conversations, shallow sleep, but Maya did not miss it. Silence had a sound of its own, and to her, that half-second blackout carried meaning. She opened her eyes fully now. Her gaze tracked the aisle, the attendants, the faces of those too relaxed to see what she saw. The businessman beside her chuckled. Scared of a light bulb? Don't worry, sweetheart. Planes don't fall that easily. His words stung with condescension. The kind of casual arrogance that masks fear. Maya turned to him slowly. She didn't answer. Her silence was heavier than anything she could have said. Across the cabin, the tall man in row 38 moved again. His jacket bulged in a way that made her stomach tighten. He leaned close to his neighbor, whispered something short, precise, not small talk, not friendly orders. Maya shifted, scanning the ceiling panels. Another flicker, a faint alarm near the cockpit, sharp, insistent, cut off before it grew loud. The intercom crackled. The captain's voice returned, calm, but stretched too thin. We are experiencing minor technical interference with communications. Nothing to be concerned about. Minor. Nothing. Carefully chosen words. Words meant to soothe. Words that always meant the opposite. Maya's pulse slowed, steadying. Her body remembered the sandstorms, the rotor blades screaming above her, the static of radios filled with panic. Every lesson etched into her nerves rose now uninvited. The woman with the magazine sighed beside her. Really? You're sweating over nothing. The crew knows what they're doing. And then the plane jolted. Hard. A sudden dip left drinks spilling. Seatbelts straining. Gasps burst through the rows. A child cried out. Nervous laughter tried to smother fear, but could not. Maya didn't move. She sat anchored, eyes sharp on the window. There, in the distance. That glint again, closer. Now, too steady to be coincidence. Her breath deepened. This isn't turbulence, she whispered. The suited man across the aisle tilted his head, smirking again. Paranoid much? Maybe take a bus next time. Some passengers laughed. Thin, uneasy, they wanted her fear to be funny, because if it wasn't funny, it was real. Maya let their ridicule settle like ash. Each sneer hardened her resolve. She had been doubted before, dismissed before, but dismissal never stopped the truth. The plane shuddered again, longer. This time, oxygen masks trembled in their housings, swaying like pendulums waiting to fall. Screens flickered, images distorted. Another alarm beeped near the cockpit. Whispers grew sharper now. "What's going on?" "Just turbulence, right?" "Planes are built for this, aren't they?" Denial spread like smoke. Maya breathed slow. She could feel it building. The moment when illusion collapses and panic takes its place. And when that moment came, the passengers who mocked her would beg for someone to lead. Her past surged back into her chest like a second heartbeat. The pilot. The commander. The soldier who had sworn to protect lives. Even at the cost of her own, she had tried to bury that self. But the sky had called her back. She pressed, her palms together, grounding herself, eyes locked on the trembling wing. The storm wasn't hours away, it was minutes. And when it struck, every secret she carried would break open. She whispered, steady, certain. "They'll see me soon enough." The cabin droned on in fragile calm, still wrapped in illusions of safety. But Maya knew. The storm was already here. The ocean stretched black beneath them, the night sky wide and endless. Flight 981 had reached its cruising altitude. Most passengers surrendered to the rhythm of long travel, earbuds in, screens glowing, heads pressed to pillows. Only Maya remained awake. Her posture seemed casual, her hoodie loose, her face half-shadowed, but inside, her mind ticked like an engine under pressure. Every vibration in the fuselage, every subtle shift of air, every flicker of light on the horizon carried weight. She leaned toward the window. The glint was still there, small, distant, but no longer vague. It tracked them, deliberate, patient. Her breath slowed. Her instincts whispered. This was no harmless reflection. It was pursuit. The plane trembled gently. A ripple through the cabin. A few passengers stirred, then sank back into comfort. Maya kept her eyes locked outward, jaw tight. She turned her attention to row 38. The tall man adjusted his jacket again. The same controlled motion. His hand brushed the hidden bag at his feet. Too rehearsed, too careful. She didn't need to see. Inside, her body already knew. The drink cart rattled down the aisle. A flight attendant smiled tightly, offering juice, soda, wine. When Maya asked if anyone had reported noises from the cargo hold, the attendant's eyes flickered with annoyance. "Everything's under control, ma'am. Please try to relax." The cart moved on. The businessman beside her smirked. "See? Professionals know what they're doing. Maybe you should let them handle it." His words stung with the same casual contempt she had carried all her life. Dismissal was easier than listening, and yet she let the insult pass. Silence was stronger than argument. The intercom crackled. The captain's voice filled the cabin, calm but not effortless. "Ladies and gentlemen, we may encounter light turbulence. Keep your seatbelts fastened." Nothing unusual, but Maya's eyes narrowed. There were no storm clouds, no shifting winds. The turbulence was not weather, it was interference. Her breath deepened. Steady. Her thoughts moved fast, cataloging exits, crew positions, suspicious figures, the fragile psychology of a crowd that still believed itself safe. The tall man shifted again, too deliberate, too precise. She could almost feel the hum of danger radiating from him, and then the aircraft jolted, sudden, sharp. Gasps echoed through the rows. Plastic cups toppled. Water splashing across tray tables. The baby cried again. Voice high and piercing, the captain returned. "Remain calm. We are handling a minor systems issue." But his voice cracked under the weight of false reassurance. Maya recognized that tone. She had used it herself in war, telling others everything's fine when it wasn't. Her body remembered. The roar of engines under fire. The static of radios in chaos, the trembling of metal when death pressed. Close, she closed her eyes for a beat, centering herself, then opened them again, sharper, colder, Across the aisle, the suited man leaned in. Guess you were right to worry. But don't fool yourself. You're not the one who's going to fix it. He smirked, satisfied, turning away. Maya didn't respond. She didn't need to. Her silence was a vow. The plane steadied again, but the illusion of safety cracked. Passengers whispered now. Voices urgent beneath the hum. What's happening? Why does it feel different? It's fine, right? But Maya knew better. The shadow outside was closer, the signals inside louder. The storm was pressing in, and when it broke, there would be no hiding, she whispered almost to herself. They'll see me soon enough. The hum of the engines deepened. Aurora 981 pressed forward across the Atlantic. But the illusion of calm was breaking apart. Maya felt it first. Not fear. Instinct. The kind of instinct carved into her bones. Through years of flying combat zones, the cabin lights flickered again. Longer this time. Whispers. Rippled across the rows. What was that? Just a power surge, right? Planes don't lose power like that, do they? People wanted answers, but they didn't want the truth. Maya's gaze sharpened on Rao. 38. The tall man lifted his bag halfway onto his knees. His fingers lingered on a zipper. Too casual, too calm. Her chest tightened. The businessman beside her snorted. Seriously? You're staring at people now? Relax before you scare everyone. Maya turned her head toward him. Her eyes met his. Steady, unwavering. She said nothing, but her silence carried weight. Enough that he looked away first. The intercom hissed. The captain's voice filled the cabin again. Too smooth, too careful. Ladies and gentlemen, we are experiencing minor communication difficulties with air traffic control. Nothing unusual. Please remain seated. Minor nothing. The same words over and over. But Maya had lived long enough to know. Reassurance is the first language of crisis. Another jolt hit. This one sharper. Longer. The plane dipped, climbed, dipped again. Gasps turned to cries. The baby shrieked. Oxygen masks rattling against their housings. Please, someone shouted. What's happening? Panic was scratching at the surface now, desperate to break through. Maya gripped her knees. Her breath stayed steady. Her pulse slowed instead of quickening. Her body remembered the drill. Calm first. Action next. She leaned toward the window. The glint outside was closer. Undeniable. A shadow tailing them, just out of range. She knew that formation. Predator. Waiting. The man in row 38 tugged his zipper an inch lower. Metal gleamed. Maya whispered. Almost to herself? They're not hiding anymore. The woman with the magazine heard her and rolled her eyes. Honestly, do you hear yourself? You sound insane. The cruelty was casual. Dismissive. The kind that stripped dignity in tiny cuts. Maya absorbed it all. She had learned long ago to turn humiliation into steel. The turbulence worsened. A drink cart slammed. Against a seat, passengers gripped armrests. Knuckles white, voices overlapped in waves. Why won't they tell us what's happening? Are we in danger? It's just air pockets. It has to be. Denial wrapped the cabin like a blanket. Thin. Useless. Maya exhaled, long, steady. She was done waiting for others to see what she saw. Her instincts weren't wrong. They never had been. Still, she knew the cost. The moment she acted, she would shatter the fragile illusion keeping panic at bay. Every eye would turn toward her, skeptical, fearful, dismissive, until truth forced them to believe. Her choice wasn't whether to act. Her choice was when. The plane shook again, harder than before. Trays crashed to the floor. A scream pierced the cabin. The captain's voice broke through, louder, strained. Remain seated. Do not panic. The situation is under control. But his voice betrayed him. Control was gone. Maya sat straighter now. Her hood slipped back slightly, revealing more of her face. Her jaw was set. Her eyes sharpened. No one noticed yet, but they would. She whispered under her breath, "A vow." if they won't act. I will. And in that moment, for the first time, she allowed the soldier inside her to breathe again. The storm was no longer coming. It was here. The illusion shattered. The next jolt came like a hammer. Aurora 981 lurched sideways, metal groaning under strain. Passengers screamed, cups and trays scattered across the floor. The baby's cry rose into panic. Overhead, bins rattled, one springing open with a violent snap. A bag tumbled out. Striking the aisle, chaos spread fast. "Sit down!" A flight attendant shouted, voice breaking. Her practiced smile was gone. Her hands trembled as she reached for the intercom. Static hissed, followed by the captain's strained voice. "Remain calm. We are addressing a systems malfunction. Please, stay seated." But calm was gone. Passengers clawed for answers, voices overlapping in a storm of fear. "What's happening? Are we crashing? Why aren't they telling us the truth?" Maya sat still, her breathing slow, her eyes sharp. Her body knew this chaos. She had seen it in war zones, in evacuations, in the moments before survival tilted one way or the other. Her gaze slid to row 38. The tall man's bag was now fully on his lap. His hand lingered on the zipper. The faint gleam of metal flashed again, too late to deny. Maya whispered, "They're moving." The woman with the magazine glared at her. "Stop whispering like a lunatic. You're scaring people." Maya didn't answer, because she wasn't here to soothe, she was here to see, and what she saw was enough to break the thin veil of safety. Around them all, the aircraft jolted again. This time the oxygen masks dropped. Plastic canisters dangled, cords swinging wildly. Gasps turned to shrieks. Panic flooded the cabin. Maya reached for the mask but didn't pull it on yet. Her focus stayed on the man in row 38. He stood, slowly, deliberately. Voices spiked. "Sit down." "What is he doing? Somebody stop him!" But nobody moved. Fear froze them in their seats. Maya's pulse steadied. Her body leaning forward slightly, every nerve hummed. "Ready?" The tall man scanned the rows, his expression unreadable. Then he sat back down. Bag still clutched tight. The false calm returned, fragile. "Tense," passengers whispered frantically. "Did you see that?" "What was he holding? Why isn't anyone stopping him?" Maya's jaw set. She had her answer. It was only a matter of time before he acted again. The suited man across the aisle leaned toward her, voice dripping with disdain. "Don't even think about getting involved. You'll make it worse. Leave it to the crew." Maya turned her head slowly. Meeting his gaze, her silence lingered. Her eyes did not waver, and for the first time, his smirk faltered. The captain's voice returned. "Urgent now. Ladies and gentlemen, please stay calm. We are coordinating with air traffic control. Do not leave your seats." But Maya knew. They weren't in control, and the shadow outside, the glint tracking them, was no coincidence. She pressed her hands together once more, grounding herself. Her breath was steady, her heartbeat slow, but her decision sharpened like a blade. Every second brought them closer to the breaking point. The plane trembled again. Passengers clung to armrests, some praying aloud, some sobbing quietly. The attendants moved fast, strapping carts, checking belts, but their eyes betrayed fear. Maya sat straighter. Shoulders squared, her hood slipped back another inch. Her face was clearer now, the calm intensity undeniable. She whispered to herself, "They don't see it yet, but they will. Because soon, the choice would no longer be hers alone." When chaos finally ripped the cabin wide open, the passengers who mocked her, dismissed her, ignored her. They would have no choice but to turn to her. The storm had arrived, and Maya was ready to step into it. The cabin had slipped past, calm. Now it lived in the uneasy space between panic and silence. Passengers clutched oxygen masks. Though the flow of air was steady, eyes darted across rows, searching for reassurance that didn't exist. Every voice was tight, clipped, brittle. Maya remained still, her breathing slow, her focus unbroken. Row 38. The man with the dark coat sat rigid, his bag clamped on his knees. His eyes moved constantly, left, right, toward the exits. Toward the attendants, he was waiting. Maya knew that look. She had worn it herself once. In a different kind of war, the intercom cracked alive again. "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated. The turbulence will pass shortly. We appreciate your cooperation." But no one believed it anymore. The captain's voice no longer masked the strain. His tone carried the weight of something unspoken. The suited man across the aisle scoffed loudly. Pathetic. People lose their heads over a little shake. Sit tight and stop overreacting. His arrogance was brittle, but his words still stung the air. Maya turned her head toward him, her face steady, her eyes cutting through his. Bravado, she said nothing. She didn't need to. The truth was already louder than his voice. Another tremor rattled the fuselage. The overhead bins shuddered. A baby shrieked again, piercing, desperate. Passengers cursed, clutched, prayed. Maya's gaze returned to the window. The shadow trailing them was closer, closer than ever. The shape was unmistakable now. An aircraft, flying without lights, holding position like a predator circling prey. Her stomach turned. The memory was too sharp. She had flown these maneuvers herself. She had been the shadow once. Now she was the target. Her jaw clenched. Her hands pressed firm against her knees. Her breath did not falter. This was not fear. It was readiness. The man in row 38 adjusted his bag again, his movements sharper now. Passengers noticed. Gasps whispered across the rows. "What's he doing? Why's he holding it like that?" "Someone call the crew." But the attendants kept moving quickly, eyes flicking to him. Then away. They had noticed too, but fear paralyzed action. Maya leaned forward slightly, her voice low, steady. "They're not going to act. Not until it's too late." The woman with the magazine snapped, her patience gone. "Stop it! You're making things worse. Keep your paranoia to yourself." Maya didn't answer. She knew words would not change minds. Only proof would. Another jolt hit. This one sent the entire cabin sideways. Drinks spilling, people crying out. The oxygen masks swung wildly. Cords tangling. The captain's voice erupted. "More urgent now. We ask everyone to remain seated. We are managing the situation." But the lie was paper thin. The cabin had crossed the line. Fear had become something else. Expectation. Everyone waited for the break. The moment when truth could no longer be hidden. Maya closed her eyes for one heartbeat. Then she opened them again. And when she did, the soldier inside her was awake. The suited man across the aisle shook his head, muttering, "Crazy woman thinks she knows better than the pilots." But his words were fading. Even he could feel the truth pressing against the walls of the aircraft. Maya leaned back, straightened her shoulders, and whispered to herself, "They'll see soon. They'll have to, because the shadow outside was no longer waiting. It was closing in, and the man in row 38, he was almost ready to stand again. The storm pressed closer. The cabin shuddered, a long rolling vibration that rattled trays and bent the silence into fear. Some passengers cried openly now, tears streaking down cheeks as they clung to armrests. Others prayed beneath their breath, words tumbling into the air like fragile threads. Maya stayed steady, her breathing calm, her gaze fixed. She had seen fear like this before, on battlefields, in hospitals, in the moments when people realized survival was no longer guaranteed. Row 38. The man shifted again. This time, he pulled the zipper halfway down. The gleam inside was unmistakable now. Steel. Gasps rippled across the rows nearest him. Someone whispered, "Oh, God!" Another hissed, "Do something!" But no one moved, not yet. The flight attendants glanced back. Their faces pale, their hands frozen on the drink cart. They knew, but fear had tied them down. The intercom sputtered. The captain's voice burst through. Urgent, cracking, Everyone remain seated. We are dealing with an unexpected complication. Please, stay calm. But calm had fled. Passengers twisted in their seats, eyes darting toward row 38, toward the shadow outside, toward anyone who might give answers. Questions fired like bullets. What's in that bag? Why isn't security here? Are we being attacked? The suited man across the aisle tried to sneer, his voice high and brittle. Ridiculous. Nobody's attacking us. It's just turbulence. But his words carried no conviction. Even he could hear the hollow echo in his tone. Maya leaned forward slightly. Her eyes locked on the tall man. Her voice, low and steady, broke through the rising noise. Not turbulence. The businessman beside her snapped. Shut up already! You're making this worse. But Maya didn't flinch. Her eyes never left row 38. Another tremor rocked the fuselage, this one sharper, angled, unnatural. Not weather, not chance. Passengers screamed. A tray table snapped loose. Clattering to the floor, oxygen masks swung like pendulums in the chaos. The tall man stood, this time, fully, the bag in his grip. A scream tore the air. Sit down! What are you doing? Somebody stop him! But no one moved. The aisle froze, every passenger locked in paralysis. Maya's chest tightened. But not from fear, from readiness. Her hood slipped fully back now. Her face exposed, her eyes fierce. She leaned forward, rising slightly from her seat. Her voice cut clear. Sharp as a blade! Everyone stay down! The words hung heavy in the cabin, not shouted, not frantic, commanded. For the first time, silence fell. The tall man's gaze snapped to her, his eyes narrowing. Recognition flickered there, like he knew she was not what she seemed. Maya didn't move closer yet. She held his stare, unflinching. Her body was ready, her instincts alive, her mind sharpening into focus. The passengers around her gaped. The woman with the magazine, who had mocked her again and again, whispered in shock, Who are you? Maya didn't answer, not yet, because answers would come soon enough, not in words, in action. The aircraft rattled again, alarms shrieking faintly from the cockpit. The shadow outside closed in, unmistakable now, an aircraft without lights, circling, pressing. Maya exhaled once, calm, certain. The storm had broken, and she was done hiding. The cabin froze. The tall man stood in the aisle, his bag clutched like a weapon, his posture rigid. Passengers shrank back, pressing against their seats, eyes wide, breath shallow. No one spoke, no one moved, except Maya. She rose slowly, her body uncoiling from the seat with deliberate calm. Her hoodie slipped from her shoulders, revealing not the weary traveler they thought she was, but something sharper. Her eyes locked on the man in row 38. Unflinching, put it down, she said, voice low. Steady. Gasps rippled through the cabin. Passengers turned, stunned that anyone would speak at all. The man didn't answer. He only stared, his grip tightening on the bag. Then, with a sharp motion, he unzipped it halfway. The flash of steel inside drew cries from every row. A woman screamed, Help! He has a weapon! The businessman beside Maya shouted, his voice shrill. Sit down, lady! Don't provoke him! But Maya didn't sit. She stepped into the aisle, her body between the passengers and the threat. Her voice cut through the panic. Everyone stay seated. Stay quiet. The authority in her tone silenced the cabin again. It wasn't a plea. It was command. The man's eyes narrowed. You don't know what you're walking into? Maya's reply was calm. Even, I know enough. For a moment, the aircraft seemed to hold its breath. Then turbulence struck again, rattling the cabin, throwing the passengers into another wave of panic. The bag slipped slightly in the man's grip. Maya stepped closer. Her movements were precise, measured, every nerve alive, every instinct calculating distance, angle, speed. She didn't need a weapon. She was one. The suited man across the aisle tried to sneer, but his voice cracked. You're going to get us all killed. Maya ignored him, Her eyes never left the tall man. "Put it down." The man smirked faintly, as if amused by her resolve. "You think you're in control here?" His words dripped with menace, but Maya's gaze was unbroken. Control wasn't claimed by words. It was proven by action. The captain's voice burst over the intercom. "Panic now! Ladies and gentlemen, remain calm! Stay in your seats!" The order fractured into static, swallowed by interference. The shadow outside loomed larger, pressing closer to the plane. Maya saw it out of the corner of her eye. The predator was nearly upon them. Passengers whimpered, prayed, clutched at strangers. The cabin was a storm of fear, but in the storm, Maya stood calm, her shoulders squared, her voice steady. "You're done hiding," she said to the man. For the first time, his smirk faltered. He recognized something in her stance, her tone, the way she didn't flinch. A soldier, not the tired woman he had assumed. The passengers watched, breathless as the truth began to flicker at the edges. This woman they had mocked, dismissed, ignored, she was not ordinary. The man adjusted his grip on the bag, his knuckles white. "You don't want to be my enemy." Maya's reply was quiet, final. "Then don't make me yours." The cabin trembled again, metal groaning, alarms shrieking faintly. The passengers gasped, bracing for impact, but Maya did not move. Her eyes were locked, her will unshaken, because she knew this moment. She had lived it before, the brink, the edge, the choice between chaos and survival, and she would not let chaos win. The plane jolted hard, oxygen masks dropped, dangling like pale ghosts in the cabin. A collective gasp tore through the passengers. Someone cried out. Someone else began praying. Fear had broken its dam, flooding every row. But one person stood steady in the storm. Maya. She didn't reach for a mask. She didn't cling to the seat. Her stance was firm, her breathing calm. Her eyes flicked from the trembling passengers to the tall man clutching his bag. Every move he made, every twitch of his fingers registered in her mind. She read him like a map of intent. Behind her, whispers spread. "Who is she? She's crazy, standing up like that." "She's going to get us all killed." The disbelief was sharp, almost cruel. Passengers scoffed, sneered, rolled their eyes in nervous contempt. They thought she was reckless. They thought she was naive. They didn't understand. Not yet. The captain's voice returned, shaky through static. "We are experiencing technical irregularities. Please remain calm." But Maya heard the truth hidden in the cracks of his words. This wasn't turbulence. This wasn't technical. This was threat. The shadow outside edged closer, slipping into view for those brave enough to look out the windows. Gasps rippled through the right side of the cabin, a dark shape against darker sky. It wasn't imagination. It was real. Children whimpered, clutching at their parents. A flight attendant's eyes widened, fear betraying her trained composure. Even the soldiers, those exhausted men in uniform, sat straighter. "Alert!" The tall man in row 38 muttered to himself, words, in a language most didn't understand. But Maya understood. Enough, it wasn't prayer, it was warning. She took a slow step forward. Her voice cut through, the chaos like a blade. "You need to tell me what's coming." He looked up, startled by her tone, not fear, not pleading, command. He shook his head. "You don't want to know." Maya's eyes narrowed. Her jaw set. Wrong answer. The passengers gasped again. Her confidence unnerved them. Some whispered insults. Who does she think she is? She's not crew. She's nothing. But Maya didn't care. Their disdain was just noise. What mattered was the truth pressing in from outside, the predator waiting to strike. The plane lurched once more, hard enough to throw cups and phones into the aisle. Screams rose like a wave. Maya didn't flinch. Her balance was perfect. Her stance anchored. Every part of her body remembered training she had buried, every instinct alive again. She turned her head slightly, voice sharp, commanding the soldiers in uniform. "You, eyes on him." She gestured toward the tall man. "Do not let him out of your sight." The soldiers blinked, startled. Then, almost involuntarily, they obeyed. Old reflexes recognizing rank. Even when unspoken, passengers exchanged looks, confusion, shock. Why would soldiers obey a woman in a hoodie? Unless she wasn't just a woman in a hoodie. This realization hadn't hit them yet, but the cracks were forming. The tall man looked at her. Differently now, not as an obstacle, not as a stranger, but as someone who knew. His voice dropped to a whisper. "Shaking. They're coming." Maya leaned closer. "Who?" Before he could answer, a bright flare streaked across the windows. Light exploded in the night sky. Passengers screamed, ducked, cried. The shadow outside had fired a warning shot. The cabin dissolved into chaos. Crying, shouts, prayers in a dozen languages, and Maya's voice. "Steady, unyielding, everyone remain seated. Flight crew, initiate emergency protocol." The authority in her words froze them, the sneers, the insults, the doubt, all silenced, because in that instant, they realized the truth. This woman wasn't guessing, she wasn't pretending, she was leading, and whether they liked it or not, their lives now rested in her hands. The flare faded into darkness, but its echo clung to every heart on board. Passengers sat frozen, their faces lit by fear. Whispers buzzed like static, low, frantic, desperate. What was that? Did we just get attacked? Why aren't we turning back? No one had answers, no one but Maya. She stood firm in the aisle, her eyes locked on the shadow outside. Her voice, calm but unyielding, cut through the noise. "They're not warning us anymore. They're hurting us." The words dropped heavy. Some passengers groaned in disbelief. Others shook their heads, refusing to accept it. The suited man across the aisle barked out nervously, "You don't know what you're talking about. Just sit down before you make this worse." But his voice cracked on the last word. His bravado was breaking. Maya didn't look at him. Her gaze stayed on the tall man in row. His bag still rested on his knees, half unzipped. She took one step closer, her eyes sharp. "Tell me what's in there." He clenched the strap tighter. Silence stretched. Passengers shifted uneasily. Holding their breath, finally he muttered, "Protection." Gasps rippled. Someone shouted, "He has a bomb!" Chaos ignited again. Cries, shouts, frantic hands grabbing at masks. Maya raised her hand, her voice slicing through the storm. "Enough." The command was crisp, sharp, impossible to ignore. The cabin hushed. As if pulled by gravity, she stepped closer, her eyes drilled into his. "Show me. Now." The man's jaw tightened. Then, slowly, he pulled the zipper wider. The metal glint returned, cold, unmistakable. Not a bomb, a weapon. The passengers gasped louder. Relief tangled with terror. A gun was dangerous, but less final than the bomb they imagined. Maya exhaled slowly. Her voice dropped lower. "You can't fire that here." "You know what happens if you do?" His eyes flickered. He knew. One bullet in a pressurized cabin could mean catastrophe. Still, his hand hovered. Threat, warning, control. The businessman beside Maya hissed, "See? He's armed. Sit down before he uses it." But Maya didn't move back. She moved forward, one step, then another. Her body radiated calm authority. Her voice cut steady. "You're not the only one here who knows weapons. You're not the only one trained to use them." For the first time, doubt flickered across his face. Recognition. Again. The silent understanding. Of soldiers who can see each other clearly. The cabin felt it too. The shift. The realization that this woman was not just brave, she was prepared. Passengers whispered, "She's different. She knows something. She's not just a passenger." The woman with the magazine, who had mocked her from the start, whispered softly, "Who are you?" Maya didn't answer. Not yet. The aircraft jolted again, alarms wailing faintly from the cockpit. The shadow outside stayed close, circling, pressing. The threat was no longer distant. It was at the door. Maya steadied her voice, her tone firm. Listen to me. Every one of you, you stay seated. You stay quiet, and you let me handle this." Her words weren't loud. They didn't need to be. They carried conviction, heavy enough to silence doubt. For the first time, the cabin obeyed. Not out of trust, out of instinct. Because in that moment, Maya no longer looked like a tired woman in a hoodie. She looked like command. The tall man's grip loosened slightly. His weapon lowered, just enough. He wasn't surrendering, but he was listening. Maya leaned closer, her voice dropping into steel. "You tell me what's really coming, or I'll find out myself." The man swallowed, eyes darting to the window, then back to her. Finally, he whispered, "They're not here for you. They're here for me." The words hit like a strike of lightning. Passengers gasped, eyes wide. Questions piled in frantic whispers. But Maya's mind was already moving faster. Because if he was the target, then every soul on this plane was collateral. The cabin held its breath. The man's words hung in the air. "They're here for me." Confusion rippled through the passengers like a second wave of turbulence. What does that mean? Why would anyone chase him? What did he do? The suited man across the aisle sneered, but his voice shook. Lies. He's just trying to scare us. But Maya knew better. She had seen too many men lie. This wasn't a lie. This was fear. Her eyes locked on the tall man. Steady, unblinking, explain. He shook his head. You wouldn't understand. Maya took a step closer. Her voice cold, sharp. Try me. The cabin was silent except for the hum of the engines and the shallow breathing of terrified passengers. Finally, the man spoke again, his voice low, almost broken. I was supposed to disappear. Change names. Change countries. But they found me. They always find me. Maya's stomach tightened. This wasn't random. This wasn't coincidence. The shadow outside, the pursuit, wasn't for the plane. It was for him. Passengers erupted again. Voices panicked. You brought this on us? You're the reason we're in danger? Get him off this flight! The chaos swelled. People shouted, cursed, reached for call buttons that no longer worked. Maya raised her hand, her voice slicing through the noise. Enough! The cabin hushed instantly. Her command was iron, unshakable. She turned back to the man. Who are they? His eyes darted to the window, then back. His whisper cracked under the weight of truth. Men I betrayed. They don't forgive. They don't forget. The passengers gasped again, fear twisting tighter. This wasn't just turbulence, this was vengeance, flying beside them in the night. The businessman beside Maya barked out, his voice sharp with terror. You brought killers onto this flight. You're going to get us all killed. Maya turned, her eyes cutting him down with silence, then she faced the man again. Why should I believe you? His hand trembled on the bag, because they'll make sure no one here survives if they don't get me. The words fell heavy. Passengers wept. Some cursed him outright. Others whispered prayers through trembling lips. Woman with the magazine whispered shakily, God help us. Maya's jaw tightened. She knew what was at stake now. 200 lives balanced on one man's past. She leaned closer, her voice low but deadly certain. You're not in control here anymore. I am. And if you want to live through this night, you'll do exactly as I say. For the first time, the man's defiance cracked. He looked at her, not with contempt, not with arrogance, but with recognition. He saw the soldier she no longer hid. Passengers murmured in disbelief, some in awe, some still clinging to doubt. The suited man tried again, his voice weak. She's bluffing. She's just pretending. But no one listened to him anymore. All eyes were on her. The aircraft jolted violently, forcing passengers back into their seats. A flight attendant screamed as a cart toppled in the galley. Alarms beeped faintly from the cockpit. Maya's voice rose above it all. Strong and unyielding. Listen to me. This is bigger than any one of us. If we fall apart now, we're finished. If we stand together, we have a chance. Her words pierced the chaos, planting something fragile but real. Hope. The man in row 38 tightened his grip. Still uncertain, still dangerous. But his eyes never left hers. For the first time, he looked less like a predator and more like prey. Maya stepped back slightly, turning her gaze across the rows of terrified faces. You want to survive? You listen, you follow, you trust. No more sneering, no more doubt. From this moment on, what I say goes. A heavy silence fell. Not agreement, not yet, but something close. Because in that instant, the passengers finally began to understand. The storm outside was deadly, but the storm inside had already chosen its leader. The night outside thickened, black swallowing black, but inside the cabin fear had color, sharp, raw, searing every face. Passengers clung to armrests. Some rocked in their seats, whispering prayers. Others stared at Maya, waiting for words she had not yet given. She stood steady, her eyes fixed on the tall man. The weapon still lay inside his bag, but his defiance had cracked. And the truth. He had spilled weighed heavy in the air. They're here for me, he had said, and that meant one thing. The plane was no longer just a flight, it was a trap. The captain's voice broke through static again, brittle with strain. Ladies and gentlemen, remain seated. We are attempting to re-establish stable communications with ground control. But Maya knew better. No communication, no control. They were alone. The shadow outside shifted, drawing closer. Its outline was sharper now, an aircraft running dark, no lights, no signal. Predator hunter. Gasps erupted from passengers who finally saw it. Oh my God, look! There's another plane out there! Why is it so close? The suited man barked again, his bravado clinging to shreds. They're just military. Patrols. Routine. Nothing to panic about. But no one listened to him anymore. His words carried no weight. All eyes returned to Maya. She took a breath. Slow and steady, then spoke. They're not patrols. They're hostile. And they're not here by accident. Her words fell like stone. Passengers flinched. Some shook their heads, refusing the truth. But deep down, they knew. The woman with the magazine whispered hoarsely, "Then what happens to us?" Maya's gaze sharpened. "That depends on what we do next." The businessman beside her snapped. "And who put you in charge?" Maya turned her head, eyes cold, voice calm. "No one. I stepped up because your lives depend on it." Silence spread. Even the businessman looked away, because the conviction in her tone was undeniable. The tall man in row 38 shifted again, muttering, "They won't let this plane land." "Not with me on board," passengers cried out. "What? We'll die because of you?" "Get him off this flight." The panic surged again, sharp and dangerous. People shouted, some half rising, their fear clawing for someone to blame. Maya raised her hand, her voice a whip. "Sit down!" The command snapped through the cabin, and they obeyed, her eyes locked on the tall man. "If they want you, they'll come for you. But I won't let them take everyone else with you," his jaw clenched. "You can't stop them." Maya stepped closer. Her voice dropped into steel. "I've stopped worse." The cabin fell into stunned silence. The passengers stared at her, whispers crawling at the edges. She's not just a passenger. She talks like a soldier. She knows things. The suited man tried again, weaker now. She's bluffing. She's nothing. But no one echoed him this time. The aircraft shuddered. A long, low vibration that rattled the windows. Another warning from outside. Another reminder that time was running out. Maya straightened her shoulders. She turned toward the soldiers seated further back. "You, secure the aisles. Make sure no one panics. Keep them seated." They hesitated only a moment, then they obeyed. Moving with clipped precision, passengers gasped, watching them fall into order behind her words. The truth spread faster now. This woman was not what she seemed. Maya's voice rang out again, firm, unyielding. "We are not prey. Not tonight. Not if I can help it." Her eyes swept the cabin, holding every frightened face in her gaze. "Do as I say and you'll live to see the ground again. Ignore me, and you won't." The silence that followed was heavy. Electric. Fear was still there, But something else had taken root. Belief, not complete, not unanimous, but enough. Because in that moment, in the sky between terror and hope, Maya Tran was no longer invisible. She was their anchor, their line, their chance. The predator outside drew closer. Its dark frame skimmed the horizon, a shadow against deeper night. Every second it felt nearer, every second. The danger grew heavier in the cabin. Passengers pressed against windows, their whispers frantic. Why isn't our pilot doing anything? Why are they following us? Are we being hunted? The word hunted spread like a flame, and no one denied it. Maya stood in the aisle. Unshaken, her presence alone steadied the panic that threatened to tear the cabin apart. The suited man tried once more, his voice brittle. You're all fools. She's scaring you for nothing. If you'd just listened to the crew, but even before he finished, passengers turned away. His voice no longer mattered. Maya raised her chin, her tone cutting clear. The crew can't fix this. The threat isn't inside the cockpit, it's outside. And it's real. Her words rang with iron. No bravado, no pretense, truth. The tall man in row 38 lowered his eyes, his voice low and bitter. They'll fire again soon. They don't bluff twice. A murmur swept through the cabin, fear sharpening every breath. What does he mean? Fire at us? They wouldn't dare. But Maya knew better. Hostiles didn't trail prey without intent, and intent never stayed silent for long. The aircraft jolted suddenly. Pitched by turbulence, or worse, screams erupted. Oxygen masks swung violently, clattering against foreheads and seats. A drink cart toppled, cans rolling like marbles down the aisle. The captain's voice burst through the intercom. Urgent, cracking. We are taking evasive action. Please, brace for... The message cut off in static. The cabin erupted into chaos. Prayers, cries, hands gripping strangers. Desperate for anything steady. Maya's voice cut through the storm. Listen to me! This isn't the end unless you make it one. Sit down, stay calm. Don't move unless I say. Her command cracked like thunder, and the cabin hushed. The woman with the magazine, who once mocked her, now clutched the armrest, eyes wide. Who are you? Maya didn't answer. Not with words. Not yet. The tall man stared at her, realization deepening. You've seen this before? Her reply was quiet but undeniable. More times than I wanted. Passengers leaned forward, caught between terror and awe. This woman, once invisible, once dismissed, now stood like the only wall between them and the abyss. The plane jolted again, sharper this time. Through the windows, flashes of light streaked across the night sky, warning shots no longer, missiles. Passengers screamed, ducking, covering their heads. Some cried out for God, others for family they might never see again. But Maya's focus stayed locked. Her eyes sharpened. Her body braced. This was war, even if the others couldn't see it yet. She moved closer to the cockpit door, her voice ringing out. Crew, secure your stations. Prepare for emergency descent if I give the word. The attendants stared at her, pale and trembling, but they nodded, obeying before their minds could catch up. Passengers gasped. Why would the crew listen to her, unless she wasn't who they thought she was? The suited man muttered, desperate. She's lying. She's just pretending to be in charge. But no one believed him anymore. His voice was drowned out by silence, the silence of recognition. The tall man's whisper broke through. They won't stop. They'll keep firing until they tear us apart. Maya turned, her eyes blazing. Then we don't give them the chance. Her words carried weight, fierce and unbreakable. For the first time, passengers leaned toward her, not in doubt, but in hope. The storm outside was closing in, but inside, a shift had begun. Maya Tran was no longer invisible. She was command. She was resistance. She was the only chance they had. The missiles had missed, but they had not been meant to miss. The cabin reeled in chaos. Screams, sobs, prayers tumbling into one storm of sound. Passengers clutched strangers, masks pressed tight to faces. eyes wide with the raw knowledge that death had skimmed inches from their wings. The crew scrambled to regain order, their voices high, trembling. Useless against the tide of fear, only one voice cut through. Maya's. Sit down. Breathe. Do not move unless I tell you. Her tone was firm, unbreakable. The command sank into the noise, splitting it, forcing silence back into the aisles. Even in terror, they obeyed. Maya's eyes locked on the tall man in row 38. You said they're here for you. Then tell me, what do they want? His jaw tightened, his voice brittle. They want me dead. They don't care who else burns with me. Gasps rippled. A woman cried out, You brought this on us! The man flinched, his grip tightening on the bag. I didn't choose this. Maya stepped closer, her voice sharp. Choice or not, we're all inside this metal coffin with you. So start talking, the suited man muttered bitterly. She's wasting time. We need real leadership, not... But no one listened to him anymore. Passengers leaned forward, their eyes fixed on Maya, not him. The tall man exhaled, ragged. I used to work with them. Smuggling, intelligence, black operations. I knew too much. I tried to run. Maya's voice cut cold. And now they've come to erase you. He nodded once, eyes flicking toward the window, and everyone in this plane with me. Passengers gasped again, fear swelling, threatening to break loose. Maya raised her hand, voice hard. No, not if I stop them. The businessman beside her barked out. And how exactly are you going to do that? You don't have a gun. You don't have a badge. You're just... Maya turned to him, her voice steady. I'm exactly what this flight needs. I know their tactics. I know how they move. And I know how to keep us alive. The cabin stilled. Even the businessman fell silent, stunned by the conviction in her tone. The aircraft jolted again, sharp and deliberate. Through the windows, the shadow plane drew closer, light still dead, intent alive and visible. Passengers whimpered, ducking low. The woman with the magazine whispered hoarsely, God help us. Maya's jaw set, God helps those who act. And I will act. She turned sharply toward the crew at the front. Tell the captain, evasive maneuvers at my mark. Keep altitude steady until I say otherwise. Do not descend unless forced, the attendants blinked. Startled, but the urgency in her voice compelled them. One hurried to the cockpit. Gasps rippled through the cabin. Passengers whispered in disbelief. Why are they listening to her? Who is she? She sounds like command. The suited man shook his head violently. She's bluffing. You're all insane if you follow her. But no one echoed him. His voice was no longer thunder. It was static. The tall man in row 38 studied Maya. Carefully. You've been here before? Her eyes narrowed. I've been everywhere this sky can kill you. Recognition flickered between them, not friends, not allies, but soldiers who spoke. The same language of survival. The aircraft rattled again. Warning shots crossing the night sky. Passengers gasped, their fear spiking once more. Maya lifted her chin, her voice rising above it. This isn't the end, not yet. But from this moment on, you listen to me or you don't survive. The words were iron, not suggestion, not plea, command. And for the first time, even in terror, the passengers nodded. They believed. Maya turned back to the tall man. You've got one choice left. Work with me or watch them die because of you. His hand trembled on the bag. Then slowly, he nodded. The storm outside raged closer. But inside the cabin, something had shifted. No longer panic, not yet peace. Something sharper, something stronger. Resolve. The cockpit door opened a crack. One of the attendants leaned out. Her face pale, her voice tight. The captain wants to know, who are you? The passengers turned, breathless, waiting. The suited man smirked weakly, muttering, finally. Maybe now they'll throw her back in her seat. But Maya didn't flinch. Her gaze stayed steady. She spoke clearly, her voice sharp enough to cut through every doubt. Tell him this. I flew combat missions over hostile skies. I know exactly what's stalking us. And I know how to survive it. The attendant blinked, stunned. Then she nodded, disappearing into the cockpit. Gasps spread through the cabin. Passengers whispered fiercely. She's military? She was a pilot? No wonder the crew listens to her. The businessman beside her hissed, "Lies. Just more lies. She's making it up." But even as he spat the words, no one believed him anymore. The aircraft shuddered violently, dropping hard before leveling again. Screams burst from the rows. A child cried out for her mother. Phones clattered to the floor. Maya braced herself easily. Her balance unbroken, she raised her voice over the noise. "Stay calm. This is what they want, panic. Don't give it to them." Her words rippled like a shield, forcing some measure of stillness back into the chaos. The cockpit door opened again. The attendant's eyes were wide, her voice urgent. "The captain wants your instructions." The cabin erupted. "What? They're asking her? She's not even crew." But the truth was clear. The captain had heard conviction in her words, and conviction mattered more than titles. Maya stepped forward, her tone crisp. "Tell him. Stay at altitude. Do not descend unless ordered. Begin lateral maneuvers, random shifts left and right. Make us harder to track." The attendant swallowed hard, then relayed her words. Moments later, the aircraft banked sharply, tilting hard to the right. Gasps and cries rose again, but Maya steadied herself, her voice calm. "That's it. That's how you dodge predators." The tall man in row 38 clutched his bag tighter, eyes on her. "You sound like them, like the people I ran from." Maya turned her head, meeting his stare. "No, I sound like the person who's going to save you, despite what you've done." Passengers listened, wide-eyed. This wasn't just authority anymore, it was defiance, against fear, against death itself. The woman with the magazine whispered, almost reverent, "You're not ordinary." "You never were." Maya didn't answer, not with words. The aircraft banked again. Sharp to the left, passengers cried out, but the move worked. The shadow outside drifted back, forced to adjust. Hope flickered in the chaos. Maya's voice cut through, steady and strong. "See? They don't own this sky. Not if we fight for it!" The suited man shouted from his seat, desperate to be heard. "She's gonna get us killed! This isn't her job!" But no one looked at him. Their eyes were locked on Maya. The disbelief that had once clung to her was fading fast, replaced by something new. Respect. The tall man finally spoke again, quieter now. "They'll strike harder. They won't let us escape." Maya nodded once. "Then we prepare for it." Passengers gasped at her certainty. How could she sound so calm, so sure in the face of what hunted them? Because Maya Tran had already died once in the skies. Tonight, she had chosen to rise again. The aircraft banked left again, engines straining as the captain forced another evasive turn. The cabin groaned under the stress. Passengers clutched seats, knuckles white, screams breaking the air. Maya braced herself, body steady. Her eyes flicked to the windows. The shadow outside shifted too, tracking, matching, refusing to be shaken. The tall man's whisper carried across the aisle. "They're locking on." Maya's jaw tightened. "How many?" His reply was hollow. "One at least. Maybe two." Gasps spread like fire. Passengers sobbed, voices high, frantic. "They'll shoot us down. We can't fight that. This is the end." Maya raised her hand, voice iron. "Quiet." The single word cut through panic. Her tone held the weight of survival, and for a moment, silence returned. She turned toward the cockpit door, calling forward. "Captain, prepare counter-maneuvers. Break pattern. Randomize altitude." The intercom hissed back. Strained, but obedient. Understood. Moments later, the plane dipped hard, diving before climbing again. Passengers screamed, stomachs lurching. But outside the window, the shadow lost ground. Struggling to adjust, Maya's voice carried over the chaos. "See? They're not invincible. They bleed when we move." Hope flickered, fragile but real. The suited man barked, desperate. "You're insane! These are trained killers. You'll only make them angrier." Maya turned her head slowly, her voice low and steady. They were already angry. "And fear doesn't save you. It kills you." Her words struck harder than the turbulence. The passengers fell quiet, listening, believing. Another flare lit the night. streaking dangerously close. The explosion of light seared the windows. The plane shook violently. Alarms wailing from the cockpit, screams ripped through the cabin again. A child cried for his father. Someone fainted. Maya stood unflinching, her voice commanding. "Brace! Heads down, hands locked!" The cabin obeyed. Folding forward in unison, the image of chaos became an image of discipline, raw, imperfect, but real. The tall man's eyes widened at her authority. "You sound like you've done this before." Maya's reply was quiet, but fierce. "Too many times," the businessman hissed. "You can't lead us against missiles. You'll get us killed." Maya's gaze cut through him. "Sharp as glass. Better to fight with me than die with you," passengers murmured, nodding, rejecting his doubt. The balance of trust had shifted. The cabin no longer looked to him, they looked to her. The cockpit door cracked open again, the attendant's voice shaking. "They want to know your next move," Maya answered instantly. "Dive to low altitude. Force them into the open. If they want us, make them show themselves," the attendant relayed moments later. The plane dropped hard, plunging downward. Screams filled the air, oxygen masks swinging wildly. But Maya stayed steady, her eyes on the shadow outside. And then she saw it, another shape, another predator joining the hunt. Passengers shrieked, pointing, crying, "There's two of them! We're surrounded!" Maya's voice cut through again. "Eyes forward! Panic won't save you!" Her tone was raw steel, a blade against fear. The tall man clutched his bag tighter. "They'll force us into the ocean." Maya leaned close, her words sharp. "Not if I force them first." Passengers stared, stunned by her certainty. The woman with the magazine whispered, trembling, "She's not afraid." And she was right. Maya Tran was not afraid. She was alive in the storm. Sharper, stronger, as if the sky itself had called her back to life. The shadow closed again. Twin predators circling, the cabin shook under another near strike. Children cried, adults prayed, and Maya's voice rose, clear and unyielding. "This fight isn't over. Not while I'm here. Not while any of us are still breathing." The cabin lights flickered as the aircraft steadied from its dive. Passengers exhaled in ragged unison, their relief short-lived. Two shadows now flanked them, predators, sleek and merciless. Maya's eyes locked on the cockpit door. She moved forward, her steps deliberate. Every gaze followed her, every breath held on her next command. The captain's voice burst over the intercom, brittle with strain. "They're boxing us in, left and right. If they fire, then make them miss," Maya cut in, her voice steel, bank sharp. "Force one to overshoot," a pause. Then the captain answered, "Understood." The plane jolted as it rolled, dipping left, then snapping back. Passengers screamed. Bags tumbled, overhead bins rattled open. But outside, the predator staggered. Thrown off balance, Maya seized the moment. "See? They're not untouchable. They can be forced. They can be broken." The words landed like sparks. Passengers clung to them, desperate for belief. The businessman spat, voice trembling with scorn. "Broken? You think you can outfly trained assassins in fighter craft? This is madness." Maya's eyes burned into him. "Madness is surrender. This is survival." The tall man looked between them, torn, then leaned toward Maya. "What do we do next?" The shift was complete. The doubter's words fell into silence. The cabin belonged to her now. Maya turned back toward the window, calculating. Her voice dropped to a growl meant only for herself. "If I can read them, I can beat them." She remembered hours of flight patterns, endless drills, the dance of predators in the sky. These weren't strangers. Their movements screamed military precision, disciplined but predictable. She grabbed the intercom from a passing attendant, her voice filling the cabin. "Listen carefully. This fight is not hopeless. These skies belong to us too. We will not give in." Children hushed. Prayers quieted. Even the engines seemed to soften under her vow. She handed the device back, then crouched beside the tall man. "What are they after?" she demanded. "You know something. Speak." His throat tightened, eyes darting to the bag under his seat. They want this. Codes, data. If they get it, his voice cracked, they could take control of satellites, cause disasters, start wars. Maya's stomach dropped, but her face stayed calm. So that's it, she said quietly. They're not just chasing us. They're chasing the world. Passengers gasped as her words spread, the weight of revelation sinking in. Whispers rose. Satellites? Wars? What kind of people are we dealing with? Maya's reply was sharp, deliberate, the kind that stop at nothing, which means we can't stop either, the suited man scoffed, desperate to reclaim ground. You expect us to trust her? She's just another passenger. But the woman with the magazine shook her head. No, not just a passenger. Look at her. Listen to her. She knows. Maya straightened, her voice cold and cutting. You want to dismiss me? Fine. But when those missiles lock, your doubt won't shield you. My plan might. The cabin chose. They turned from the doubter. They leaned into her. The captain's strained voice cracked in again. They're signaling, demanding we descend. 10,000 feet. They want us low, Maya answered instantly. Don't. At that altitude, we're sitting ducks. Stay high. Burn their fuel. The cockpit paused. Then, copy. The plane leveled, steady against the night. Outside, the shadows pressed closer, lights flashing in warning. Wings angling menacingly. Passengers trembled. Some prayed louder. Some shut their eyes. Maya walked the aisle, her presence anchoring them. Look at me, she told them one by one. Keep calm. Keep strong. They want fear. We give them nothing. A child whispered, Are we going to die? Maya crouched, meeting his eyes. Not tonight. Not while I'm here. Hope flickered again. Fragile but alive. Then, through the window, fire streaked across the dark, a warning shot. Closer than before, the cabin rattled, gasps filled the air. The businessman shouted, This is it! We're finished! But Maya's voice cut through, sharper than the alarms. No, this is where we fight back. She strode toward the cockpit, her voice carrying, her authority undeniable. Captain, prepare for drag maneuver. Drop gear, force an overshoot. We buy time, the captain hesitated. That could do it, she snapped. The engines roared, the plane jolted again, gear deploying mid-air. Speed plunging, the shadows streaked forward, caught off guard. Overshooting in a blur of light. Gasps turned to stunned silence. Passengers looked at each other in disbelief. She had outmaneuvered them. Maya steadied herself against the wall. Her breath controlled. They'll come back harder. But we proved it. They're not untouchable. She turned back to the cabin, her voice a vow. This isn't over. We'll endure. We'll survive. And when the sun rises, we'll still be here. The cabin still trembled from the sudden drag maneuver. Passengers clung to seats, wide-eyed, their breaths shallow. For one fragile moment, the predators outside had been forced back. For one fragile moment, hope had flickered. But hope is fragile, and predators adapt. The cockpit intercom hissed. They're regrouping, the captain warned, voice tight. They'll come harder this time. Maya nodded once, eyes locked on the window where the shadows circled again. I know, she said softly. They won't forgive a mistake. The tall man in row 38 clutched his bag tighter, sweat dripping from his brow. They won't stop until I'm dead. Passengers flinched, voices rising again. Throw him off! He's the reason we're targets. Get rid of him before they fire again. The businessman shouted above them, desperate to reclaim control. She's protecting him. She's protecting the one who's killing us. His words hit like sparks on gasoline. Panic flared again. A man surged from his seat. Fists clenched. Others shouted, some reaching for the tall man, ready to drag him down the aisle. Chaos threatened to split the cabin apart. Maya moved first. Her voice cracked like thunder. Sit! Down! The command froze them. Every head snapped toward her. Every fist lowered. Every shout cut short. Her eyes swept the rows, cold, unwavering. You think throwing him out fixes this? You think killers outside will fly away if he's gone? Wrong. They'll finish us all to erase the evidence. Him dead. You dead. It makes no difference. The passengers stared, stunned, breaths ragged. Her words were not comfort. They were truth. The businessman spat. Then what? What do you propose? Sit here and wait to die? Maya turned slowly, her voice low but sharp. No. We outlast them. We break them. We force them into mistakes. That's how you win a fight in the sky. Her tone held conviction, forged in fire, impossible to deny. The woman with the magazine whispered, She knows. She's done this before. Maya's jaw tightened. But she didn't answer. There was no time for history, only action. The cockpit door cracked open again. The attendant's voice trembled. They're signaling again, demanding descent. Passengers whimpered. Some prayed louder. Others shook their heads in disbelief. Maya's reply was instant. No descent. Stay high. They want us where they control the fight. We keep the sky, the attendant relayed. Moments later, the engines roared, the aircraft climbing higher still. Gasps filled the cabin, some in awe, some in terror. The businessman muttered, Defeated! She'll kill us all! But his voice no longer carried. The passengers looked to her now. Not him, not the captain. Her. The tall man whispered, broken. They won't let us live. You don't know them. Maya turned on him, her voice like a blade. I know enough. And I know this, you're not the only one. Who's been hunted? The word silenced even. Him. Recognition burned in his eyes. She was not bluffing. Then it happened. A sound not from outside, but inside. A sharp, metallic click from the rear of the cabin. Passengers spun, eyes wide. One of the soldiers, supposed allies, stood, weapon in hand. Eyes cold, gasps, cries, someone screamed. Maya's heart slammed once, hard, but her face stayed calm. She raised her voice, steady as steel. Don't, the soldier sneered. Weapon steady, you think you can outfly them? But the order's already given. He dies, his weapon aimed at the tall man. The cabin erupted into shouts. No! Put it down! You'll kill us all! Maya stepped forward, her body between the soldier and his target, her eyes locked on him, fierce and unbroken. You fire! You tear this cabin apart! You kill more than him, and you know it! The soldier's eyes narrowed. You're not in command here! Maya's voice dropped to a razor's edge. Then why are you shaking? His hands trembled. Just enough. The passengers saw it too, and for the first time, their fear shifted, not toward her, not toward the hunted man, but toward the traitor in their own ranks. The cabin held its breath again. A gun, a soldier, a choice, and Maya Tran, standing tall, refusing to move. The cabin was frozen, every eye locked on the soldier's trembling weapon. Every breath hung in the thick silence, waiting for the shot that could end them all. Maya stood in the aisle, her body a shield between the soldier and the tall man. Her voice cut through the tension. Low, steady. You shoot here, you kill more than him. You kill everyone, the soldier sneered, though his jaw was tight. My orders were clear. He doesn't leave this plane alive. Passengers gasped. Whispers flared. He's with them? He's working for the enemy? Oh God, we're trapped. The businessman clutched his seat, his voice frantic. Do you hear this? We're finished! We're surrounded outside and betrayed inside. Maya raised her hand sharply. Silence. The word cracked through the storm, and silence followed. Her eyes drilled into the soldier. You think you're following orders. But this isn't war, it's slaughter. And you'll die with us if you pull that trigger. The soldier's hands shook just slightly, betraying the crack in his resolve. Maya stepped forward, deliberate, fearless. Each step dared him. Each step stripped away his certainty. Look at me, she said. You know what happens when a gun goes off at this altitude? You've drilled it. You've lived it. A single round depressurizes the cabin. No one walks away. Not you, not me, not them. Gasps echoed. Passengers clutched their seats tighter, realizing the weight of her words. The soldier's eyes flickered. For the first time, doubt surfaced. Maya pressed harder. You're not serving your country. You're not serving anyone. You're a pawn. And they sent you to die here with us." His hand trembled more. The weapon dipped, just slightly. Passengers leaned forward. Breaths caught. The woman with the magazine whispered hoarsely, "She's—" breaking him. The tall man in row 38 sat rigid. Eyes wide, he whispered, almost to himself, "She's the only one who can," but the soldier snarled, desperate to cling to his order. "You don't know what you're talking about." Maya's reply was ice. "I know exactly what I'm talking about. I've seen this before. Soldiers told to die for causes they don't even believe in. I buried some. I carried the rest. You don't want to be one of them?" Her words hit harder than the turbulence. Her tone was raw, real, undeniable. The gun wavered. Passengers gasped, some reaching for each other, as if their hope hinged on the angle of his trembling hand. Maya leaned closer, her voice a razor's whisper. "You don't have to be their weapon. You can still be human. Drop it." The cabin held still. The hum of engines filled the silence. Then, the gun lowered, just an inch. Gasps of relief rippled, but Maya didn't relax. "Not yet." "Drop it," she repeated. Firm, final. The soldier's chest heaved, his fingers twitched. Then, slowly, painfully, the weapon clattered onto the carpeted aisle. Passengers exhaled all at once, sobs breaking loose, whispers of thanks. Prayers whispered louder. The suited man shouted from his seat, half in rage, half in disbelief, "You should have let him shoot! He's the reason we're being hunted!" But no one echoed him. They were staring at Maya, not the soldier, not the tall man, her. The soldier slumped back, hands over his face, broken. Maya kicked the weapon down the aisle, sliding it far out of reach. Then she straightened, her eyes sweeping the cabin. Her voice was steady, commanding. "This plane is not theirs. Not inside. Not outside. We survive because we stand together. No more doubt. No more division." Her words filled the silence, searing into every terrified soul on board. The tall man whispered, shaken, "You saved me." Maya's reply was cold. "I saved them. Don't confuse the two." The intercom crackled alive again. The captain's voice was urgent. "They're closing back in." "Missiles arming!" Passengers gasped. Screams breaking loose again. But this time, before panic could spread, Maya's voice rose above it. "Then we forced them into one last mistake." Her eyes burned with fire. Her voice carried conviction, and for the first time, even in the face of death, the passengers believed. The weapon lay on the aisle carpet, glinting faintly under the trembling cabin lights. The soldier who had raised it sat slumped, head in his hands, broken by truth. But there was no time to savor the victory. The captain's voice tore through the intercom. Sharp with urgency, they're locking on. "Missiles armed. We have seconds," the cabin erupted. Passengers screamed, sobbed, clawed at masks as if thin plastic could shield them from fire. Some prayed louder, voices rising over the hum of the engines. Others stared at Maya, desperate for command. She stood tall in the aisle, unflinching. Her voice cracked above the chaos, strong and unyielding. "Listen to me. Fear won't save you, but order will. Breathe. Sit down. Brace." Her words cut through panic, forcing silence back into trembling rows. Not peace, but discipline. She turned sharply to the attendant at the cockpit door. "Tell the captain. Drag-drop maneuver, full flaps, then immediate climb. We bleed their lock." The attendant blinked, terrified. "Drag and climb? That could tear us apart." Maya's eyes burned into her. "It could also keep us alive. Go." The attendant nodded and relayed. Moments later, the plane lurched violently. Gear dropped, flaps spread wide. The aircraft jolted downward before roaring back into a steep climb. Passengers screamed, bodies pressed into seats, stomachs lurching, bags burst from bins, crashing into aisles. But outside, the first missile streaked past, overshooting, exploding harmlessly in the distance. Gasps tore through the cabin. Some sobbed with relief. Others stared at Maya in stunned disbelief. She made them miss. She knew what to do. "She's saving us," the suited man spat, his face pale, his voice shrill. "Or she's gambling with our lives." But his words no longer carried weight. Every eye was on her now. The cabin had chosen its leader. Maya steadied herself against the aisle wall, her breathing controlled. She spoke loud enough for all to hear. This isn't luck. This is knowledge. I've fought these skies before, and I will not let them take us. Her vow rang like iron. Passengers leaned toward her, clinging to the strength in her tone. The tall man in row 38 whispered, shaken, "They won't stop." "You know that." Maya turned her eyes on him. "Sharp as a blade. Then neither will I." Another alarm shrieked through the cabin. A second missile streaked from the Predator's wing. Closing fast, passengers screamed again, ducking low, pressing into armrests. Maya's voice thundered, drowning out the terror. "Brace! Heads down! Trust the climb!" The captain obeyed her command. The aircraft banked hard, climbing at an impossible angle. The engines roared like wounded beasts. The missile missed by meters, flashing past the nose, disappearing into night. The cabin erupted in gasps and cries of disbelief. For the second time, death had reached for them and been denied. Maya steadied her stance, scanning the faces around her. Tears streamed, hands shook, but beneath it all, something had shifted. They believed. The woman with the magazine whispered, "Trembling, you were never just a passenger." Maya didn't answer. Her silence was confirmation enough. The suited man tried one last time, his voice desperate. "This is suicide. They'll fire again, and next time," but a chorus of voices cut him off, passengers shouting almost in unison, "Enough! Let her speak. She's keeping us alive." The balance was sealed. The doubter had been silenced not by Maya, but by the people themselves. The intercom crackled again. The captain's voice was steadier this time. "Whatever you're doing, it's working. What's our next move?" Maya exhaled slowly, her voice calm, certain. "We drag them out. We force them to reveal themselves. Once they commit, they're vulnerable. And that's when we strike back." Gasps rippled. Passengers exchanged stunned looks. "Strike back? With what?" "We're just a passenger plane." Maya's eyes hardened. "You'll see." Because she knew something they didn't. Every aircraft, no matter how helpless it seemed, had a way to fight. The cabin moved with a new rhythm now, not the random panic of before, a rehearsed tension, like soldiers waiting on a whistle. Maya walked the aisle, her steps precise. Her presence had reshaped the room. Fear folded into focus. Passengers met her gaze and flinched, then steadied. "Listen," she said. Voice low, measured. "Everything we do from now on has to be deliberate. No sudden moves, no whispers that turn into screams." "We prepare," a murmured chorus answered. "How? What can we do? Is there anything to stop them?" She moved toward the rear where the soldiers had taken position. They were tired, but they had followed. Maya's words to them were quick, tactical. "You, two by the galley. Watch the rear. Keep calm. You, with me, help me organize seating for bracing. Everyone else, we build barriers. Use bags, blankets, anything to absorb shock. We make this cabin a bunker." The passengers obeyed, fumbling with seat belts. Reaching into overheads, odd items became tools. A child's backpack became padding. A rolled blanket became wedge. Margaret, the quiet woman who'd kept notes, tied a scarf into a loop and handed it up to a man who was bracing his knees. Maya barked out short, exact commands. 2 people on each aisle. One to secure, one to comfort. If someone faints, steady them. Keep the children low in between seats. Nobody stands unless I order. A hush fell, not from silence, but from attention. The cabin felt smaller, more intimate. Strangers became teammates. She paused at the tall man's row. He watched, hollow-eyed, as people repurposed their lives into safety gear. "You okay to help?" she asked. He swallowed. "Do what you say," he muttered. He was trembling. But he moved. He became useful. That tremor in his hands became a steadying force, passing from him to others. Maya turned to the flight attendants. "Jennifer, inventory. How many emergency straps, life vests, first aid kits? Tell me now." Jennifer counted in clipped bursts, her voice steadying under command. 3 extra harnesses, 2 fire extinguishers, a trauma kit, a tool kit in the forward closet. Maya's face tightened. Options, limitations, ingenious solutions forming. Good. We'll improvise. The harnesses go to critical rows. Kids, elderly, people with medical conditions. The toolkit? I need to open one latch in the wing panel if necessary. Not to leave the plane, to disable any tampering. Keep that door sealed. No one touches it without me. A young father in the aisle looked at her. My wife, she's pregnant. Maya nodded, immediate and calm. She sits center. 2 straps, a soldier on either side. Keep her warm. I'll check vitals after this pass. The cabin moved like a living thing, reorganizing itself around a common plan. Collective effort softened the edge of terror. Outside, the night sky remained a black wall studded with the slow pulse of hostile lights. They watched through small windows and felt both vulnerable and somehow less alone. Maya returned to the front, where the captain and first officer exchanged tired looks. Fuel? She asked, concise. Enough for diversion, but not endless evasions, the captain answered. Range to a diversion airport. 2 hours at current burn if we keep evasive. Less if we keep climbing. Maya calculated silently, fingers tracing invisible vectors. She imagined runs, burn rates, the slender line between outlasting and running out. She decided. We conserve, she told the cockpit. Minimal power for holds. Use drag and flap sparingly, only to force overshoots. Buy time for interceptors to arrive. Tell ground to light up any available fighters on guard. We don't descend. We don't land until we have a secure corridor. The captain nodded, voice raw with gratitude and relief. You'd be amazed how many people in crisis do not understand the luxury of procedure, Maya said softly to no one in particular. Back in the cabin, she moved among the rows. Hands-on, teaching. How to hug a brace position. Where to place hands, how to lock knees under a seat to stop sliding. Her voice was calm, almost tender. Don't clench your jaw. Breathe with me. In for 3, out for 4. Focus on the length of your breath. A little boy mimicked her, his breaths slow and obedient. His mother squeezed her hand and looked at Maya with new eyes. Trust? Raw and eager, she set up a chain of watchers. People who would silently monitor the exits. The aisles, the suspicious man, the sleeping crew. No heroics unless I call it. We use quiet, observation, surprise. If they come inside, we don't scatter. We converge. Maya paused at the doorway, looking over the cabin like a strategist surveying a battlefield. You chose a seat to disappear, she said, almost to herself, thinking of the hoodie and the middle seat. Good, because today invisible people do the hard work. The plane hummed. Waiting. The passengers breathed in rhythm now. A tentative communal metronome. Outside. Distant engines flickered. Other aircraft on the horizon. A promise or a timer. Maya met Margaret's eyes. The old woman asked quietly, voice small but determined. If you're right, if we do as you say, what then? Maya's reply was soft, iron beneath velvet. Then we get off this plane. We tell what happened. We make sure the world remembers why we didn't give up. She paused, then leaned in. The camera of the mind catching every face. Hold on to that. A faint smile flickered across a dozen lips. The sin wave dipped again. Quiet. Careful before the next climb. The cabin no longer felt like a crowd of strangers. It pulsed like a single organism, breathing, bracing, waiting. But silence never lasts long when fear lingers. A sudden metallic crack reverberated through the fuselage. Passengers flinched, heads snapping toward the windows. Outside, one hostile aircraft darted close, too close. Brace! Maya commanded, her voice slicing through panic. The plane dipped sharply, then steadied. The engines roared louder as the captain executed a jarring, evasive maneuver. Gasps and muffled cries echoed through the cabin. Maya stayed on her feet, knuckles white on a seat back. She let the turbulence roll through her body like a wave, absorbing the shock so the others could anchor themselves. They're pushing us, she whispered, more to herself than to anyone else. They want us rattled. They want someone to break. Jennifer, the attendant, hurried to her side. What do we do if they fire? She asked, her voice trembling despite her best effort. Maya's answer came cold, deliberate. If they fire, we count seconds. Every second alive is one more chance for rescue. We don't panic. We don't scatter. We endure. She turned back to the passengers, her tones steel-wrapped velvet. Do you understand me? We endure. A murmur swept the rows. People nodded. Endure. The word itself became a shield, then an eerie lull. The pursuing lights drifted farther back. The sudden quiet was almost worse than the chase. The tall man, still pale, whispered, "Why would they pull away? What are they waiting for?" Maya met his eyes. "They're not finished. They're calculating." And then, softly, with disdain, "Predators always prefer the moment when prey stops running. That's when they strike." Her contempt for the unseen enemy carried across the cabin, sparking something in the passengers. They were no longer just terrified travelers, they were witnesses to defiance. A child's voice rose from the middle rows. "Are we going to die?" Every adult froze, unwilling to answer. Maya crouched, meeting the boy's wide eyes. "No. We're going to fight for every breath. And fighting means you're alive. You'll remember that when this is over." The boy nodded slowly, his small fists unclenched, and for the first time since the nightmare began, his mother's sobs quieted. Maya stood again, scanning the cabin. "Listen carefully. If they breach this plane, we don't collapse. We converge. Together, understand?" Her words cut the air in sharp syllables. Easier for panicked minds to absorb. Do not collapse. Converge. Together. The soldiers shifted in their seats, the rhythm of training returning. A grandmother in the front row whispered, "She talks like a commander." Maya heard it, but gave no acknowledgement. "Not yet." The intercom crackled. The captain's voice was strained. "Ladies and gentlemen, hold steady. We've contacted ground. Assistance is inbound, but it will take time. We need your cooperation." The message confirmed what Maya already knew. They were alone for now. She exhaled slowly, forcing calm into her limbs. "Time," she repeated aloud for the passengers. "That's what we're buying. Every breath you take, every heartbeat. Time." Another jolt rattled the plane, sending overhead bins quivering. Screams erupted, but Maya lifted her hand, palm steady, eyes on me. "Not on them. Look here." Dozens of faces turned to her. In that instant, she wasn't just a fellow passenger. She was the axis of the entire cabin. Jennifer clutched her arm. "Why are you doing this? Why do you sound like you've done this before?" Maya's eyes flashed, a trace of disdain in her smile. "Because I know what they don't. I know what fear does, and I will not let them own it." Her words were not an explanation. They were a challenge to the enemy, to doubt, even to the crew, who still did not fully grasp who she was. She looked once more at the nervous tall man. "You asked what they're waiting for," she said. "They're waiting for weakness." She leaned closer, her voice carrying to everyone. "And I refuse to give it to them." The cabin held its breath. Passengers clung to every syllable, as though the steadiness of her voice could bind the aircraft together. Then Maya delivered the line that would echo long after this flight ended. "They may control the sky tonight, but not our spirit. Never our spirit." The quiet that followed was not silence. It was reverence. Even the engines seemed to hum in rhythm with her words. The sky outside glowed faintly, the hunter's lights returning. The brief lull ended. Predators don't retreat. They circle. They wait for the heartbeat to falter. Passengers saw it now, two shadows closing in again. The murmurs grew sharper, like the hiss of a storm building in the cabin. "They're back. They'll fire this time. We can't take another hit." Maya stood still in the aisle, shoulders squared, eyes locked forward. Her silence was louder than the panic. Then she spoke, slow and sharp, pacing her words so every ear caught them. "They think we're broken. They think we'll fold. But I promise you this, we bend, we don't break." The rhythm steadied, trembling breaths. Heads lifted, hands unclenched. The tall man clutched his bag tighter, voice low. "You don't understand. These people, once they decide—" Maya cut him off, her tone edged with scorn. "I've faced worse than men who hide in the dark. They're not gods. They bleed. They break." Passengers stared, stunned at her defiance. The businessman muttered from his seat, his voice weak now. "You talk like you're one of them." Maya's eyes flicked to him, hard and cold. "Wrong. I talk like the one they never wanted to face." The cabin froze. Passengers whispered, "What does she mean? Who is she?" But Maya turned away, refusing to explain. "Not yet." The intercom sputtered, the captain's voice taut. "They're signaling again, warning lights, angles tightening." "They want us to descend or they'll engage." Passengers gasped, cries rising. "Do what they say!" "They'll kill us!" "Please, just land somewhere." Maya raised her voice, cutting through the swell. "No. If we go low, we die faster. Trust me. Altitude is survival." The cabin quivered with divided fear, some clinging to her words, others desperate to yield. The tension threatened to snap. Maya stepped into the center aisle, her presence magnetic. Her voice dropped lower, slower, carrying weight like stone. "You want to know why I sound certain? Why I don't shake like the rest of you? Then listen." Dozens of faces turned. The hum of the engines fell beneath her tone. "I was a pilot, combat trained. I've flown these skies in war. I've faced men just like them and worse. I know the game they're playing because I played it first." Gasps tore through the cabin. Mouths fell open. Whispers surged like a wave. "She's military. She was one of them." No wonder she knew the maneuvers. Even the soldiers seated in back straightened, eyes wide, as if saluting without moving. The businessman scoffed, but his voice cracked. "Lies. She's lying. She's just feeding you a story." But his protest drowned in the tide of belief spreading row by row, because the truth had already been living in her stance. Her voice. Her eyes. Now it had a name: Maya, pilot, soldier, survivor. She let the weight settle, then continued, her tone harder. "You doubt me? Fine, but remember, every move I've called has kept us alive. Every maneuver they missed was one I chose. Doubt won't shield you. My knowledge might." Silence stretched. Passengers sat rigid. The shift complete. Doubt hadn't vanished, but it no longer ruled the cabin. The tall man exhaled shakily. "You were like them once." Maya's gaze cut to him. "I was never like them. I chose the light. That's why I'm still here." Her contempt laced the air, burning hot enough that passengers flinched as though it was aimed at the hunters outside. The captain's voice cracked in again. "Missile lock detected. Impact window 30 seconds. The cabin broke into cries, chaos threatening again, but Maya's voice thundered over it. "Eyes on me! We've beaten them twice. We'll beat them again. Brace positions now." Passengers folded forward in near unison, no longer scattershot chaos, but organized survival. The cabin looked like a formation. Maya braced herself against the aisle wall, her voice steady even as alarms screamed. "Remember this. Fear doesn't own you. Discipline does. And tonight, discipline keeps you alive." Through the windows, streaks of light closed fast. Engines roared. Metal shuddered. Maya closed her eyes for one sharp breath, then opened them again. Clear, fierce, ready. Her next words carried like a vow carved in steel. "If they want war, I'll give them one." The alarm shrieked through the cabin. Red lights blinked on the cockpit panel. Missile lock. Passengers screamed, bracing instinctively. Hands clutched armrests. Mothers pulled children tight against their chests. Every heart thudded with the same word: impact. Maya stood in the aisle, her voice cutting sharp through the storm. "Brace! Heads down, arms locked! Now!" The cabin folded almost in unison. Dozens of bodies bent forward, trembling but obedient. This was no longer chaos. It was survival drilled into instinct by her command. The captain's voice cracked over the intercom. "Missile inbound! 20 seconds! Execute drag drop!" Maya barked. "Cut thrust, then climb hard on my mark." The crew obeyed. Engines whined, power dipping. The aircraft dropped suddenly, stomachs lurching. Screams pierced the air. "Now climb!" Maya thundered. Engines roared alive, the plane jolting upward, tearing into the sky. Through the windows, a streak of fire flashed past, missing the fuselage by meters before detonating in a blinding flare. The shock wave rattled the cabin. Overhead bins burst open, luggage tumbling into the aisles. Passengers cried out, but they were alive. Maya straightened, her breathing steady, her voice firm. That's 3 they've missed. 3. Remember that. They're not gods. They're flawed. And flaws can be broken. The passengers clung to her words like rope in a storm. Some sobbed with relief. Others whispered prayers of gratitude. But their eyes stayed fixed on her. The tall man, still pale, muttered from his seat. They won't forgive this. Every time you outfly them, they'll come harder. Maya leaned toward him, her voice sharp, contempt curling in her tone. Let them. The harder they come, the harder they fall. Whispers rippled through the cabin. She saved us again. She knows their every move. She's one of us. But more. The businessman slumped in his seat, his defiance cracked, but his bitterness hissed out anyway. And when she fails, what then? Maya's gaze cut through him. Then we face it standing, not crawling. That's the difference. Her words silenced him. Passengers nodded faintly, their belief outweighing his doubt. The cockpit door cracked open. Jennifer's face appeared, pale but resolute. Captain says fuel is dropping faster with the climbs. We can't keep this pace forever. Maya's jaw tightened. She turned to the passengers, her tone deliberate. You hear that? Time is our enemy. Not just missiles, not just fear. Fuel. We endure long enough, we win. If we waste it, we lose. The soldiers in the rear straightened, alert. The grandmother in row 3 whispered, She speaks like command. Maya ignored the murmurs, her focus locked on the cockpit. Tell the captain, conserve between climbs, minimum evasions. We make them waste fuel before we do. Force their hand, Jennifer relayed. Moments later, the engine steadied, leveling into a smoother hum. The passengers felt it too. Calm between storms. Maya used the lull. Her voice softened slightly, just enough to reach trembling ears. Listen to me. You are more than passengers now. You are survivors. You're not waiting to be saved. You're fighting with me. Every breath you take, every order you follow, that's how we win. The woman with the magazine nodded, whispering fiercely. She's right. We're not helpless. The cabin's energy shifted. No longer only fear, something sharper, something stronger. Resolve. Then the captain's voice returned, grim. They're closing in again. Dual formation. Both are armed. Gasps surged through the rows. 2 missiles this time. No one needed to say it aloud. Maya lifted her chin, her tone fierce, unflinching. Then we outfly them both. She stepped toward the cockpit door, every step an anchor for the terrified eyes watching her. Her next words carried like a vow. They think this plane is prey. They think we're weak. But tonight, we make hunters bleed. The sky lit up with twin streaks of fire. 2 missiles, both hunting, both closing fast. The cockpit alarm wailed. Red icons flashed across the captain's panel. Impact window. Seconds. Passengers screamed, bracing themselves. Some sobbed into their sleeves. Others clutched hands until knuckles turned white. The air itself seemed to crackle with despair. Maya's voice cut through, sharp and commanding. Brace, but listen. This isn't panic. This is precision. Follow me. The cabin hushed, trembling but listening. She gripped the seat back, her stance steady as steel. Her tone slowed, deliberate, TTS precise. They're coming in tandem. That's their mistake. One will always chase faster than the other. If we brake at the right second, they collide. The words landed like a spark of impossible hope. Passengers froze, stunned. Someone whispered, She's going to make them crash. The captain's voice cracked from the cockpit. Are you serious? That's suicide. Trust me, Maya barked, Her voice rang with conviction too strong to doubt. On my mark, hard right roll, then sharp climb. Don't think. Just execute. A tense pause. Then the captain answered, breathless. Copy. Maya turned back to the passengers, her voice sharp as glass. Everyone, brace tight. Heads down, arms locked. This will hit harder than before. But if you stay with me, we live. Dozens bent forward, trembling but obedient. The child in row 12 whispered. She said, "We'll live." And his mother held him tighter. Outside, the twin missiles streaked closer. One fast, one just behind, their tails glowing like burning spears. Maya's eyes narrowed, timing each heartbeat. Closer. The engines roared, the fuselage rattled. Closer! Passengers whimpered, clutching seats. The businessman muttered frantically, "She'll kill us all!" "Now!" Maya thundered. The aircraft snapped hard right, wings tilting at a brutal angle. Passengers screamed as the world outside flipped sideways. Then, an instant later, the captain yanked the nose up, the jet climbing violently. The first missile screamed past, missing by feet. The second, chasing its heat, overcorrected. Its path curved straight into the first. A blinding explosion lit the night. The shockwave slammed the aircraft, rattling teeth bursting open overhead bins. Passengers cried out, but the flames burned behind them, not in them. They were alive. Gasps and sobs broke through the cabin. Some laughed hysterically, others clung to strangers. The boy whispered in awe. She made them hit each other. Maya steadied herself in the aisle, her breathing measured. She raised her voice, strong and unwavering. "That's 4. 4 they've missed. Do you see now? They are not invincible. We can beat them." Hope surged, raw and electric. Passengers lifted their heads, eyes wide, no longer only terrified, but believing. The tall man stared at her, shaken to his core. You played death like a game of chess." Maya's reply was calm, edged with iron. "Not a game, a war. And I refuse to lose." The businessman sat slumped, his protests hollow now. He muttered weakly, This can't last. They'll send more." Maya's gaze cut through him, fierce and contemptuous. "Then let them. We'll be ready." The cockpit door opened. Jennifer rushed out, face pale, but eyes burning with adrenaline. "Captain says your maneuver. It worked. He wants your next orders." The passengers gasped. The captain, the highest authority on the plane, was now following her. The shift was complete. Maya straightened, her voice carrying to every corner of the cabin. "Tell him, conserve altitude, keep evasions minimal, and prepare for one last push, because they'll come with everything they have left." Jennifer nodded and vanished into the cockpit. The cabin erupted in whispers. "She's leading the flight. She's more than a soldier. She's the reason we're still breathing." Maya scanned their faces. Terror still lingered, but now it burned beside something new. Faith. She let the silence stretch, then spoke softly, deliberately. "You've seen what happens when we listen. You've seen what happens when we fight. That's what survival looks like." Her words wrapped around them like armor. Passengers sat taller, the trembling steadied. Outside, the night sky glowed faintly with debris still burning. But farther out, fresh lights flickered, predators regrouping, the next wave. Maya's voice dropped low, carrying weight like a vow. "They think we're prey. They think we'll break. Let them think it. When they strike again, we'll show them who we really are." The sky outside still burned with fragments of fire. 2 predators destroyed by their own weapons. But the victory was fragile, fleeting. Farther out, new lights appeared on the horizon. Fresh hunters. Faster, smarter, angrier. Passengers saw them too. Gasps rippled through the cabin, followed by whispers that built like static. "They're sending more. We can't survive another wave. Not even she can stop this." Maya stood tall in the aisle, her stance unshaken. She let the panic rise, then cut it with her voice. "Listen, Every time they come, we've endured. Every time they strike, we're still here. That's not chance. That's choice. That's discipline. And it's why we'll see morning. Her words steadied the rows. Not peace, but focus. The tall man in row 38 leaned forward, his eyes dark. They won't stop. I know their methods. When one wave fails, they escalate. They'll use their deadliest trick next. Passengers stiffened, clinging to his words. What trick? What else can they do? Maya's gaze locked on him, cold and sharp. Speak. Now! He swallowed hard. They'll force us into low altitude. Herd us like cattle. Then boarding. Not to destroy. To capture. Gasps burst across the cabin. Someone cried out, "Board us! Here? In the air?" Maya nodded once, her voice low but fierce. Yes, they'll try to cripple us, then latch on. And if they get inside, no one survives. The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. Passengers gripped seats tighter, breaths shallow. A child whimpered in his mother's arms. Maya lifted her chin, her tone sharp enough to break the dread. Then we make sure they never get that chance. If they come close, we fight them off, every single one of us. This cabin is our fortress. Do you understand? The passengers murmured, fear battling with determination. Some nodded, some shook, but no one looked away. Jennifer, the attendant, stepped forward, her face pale but resolute. Then we need a plan. How do we prepare? Maya's reply was crisp, rapid, tactical. Every able-bodied passenger forms defense groups. Use belts, bags, metal from luggage. Soldiers coordinate choke points, front and rear. We don't scatter, we converge. If they breach one door, the rest close in. Fast, overwhelming, together. She walked the aisle as she spoke, placing hands on shoulders, forcing eyes to meet hers. You are not helpless. You are not prey. You are the wall between them and this plane. The woman with the magazine whispered fiercely. She's turning us into an army. Maya didn't flinch at the words. She wanted them to believe it. The businessman sneered, though his voice had lost its venom. You expect civilians to fight trained killers? Maya's gaze cut through him, disdain dripping. I expect survivors to choose life. That's more dangerous than any weapon they carry. Passengers murmured agreement. Even the businessman fell quiet, his resistance shrinking under the weight of the cabin's shift. The tall man clutched his bag tighter, sweat dripping. They'll kill me first. I'm the reason they're here. Maya turned to him, her voice cold as steel. Then you fight hardest, because if you fall, we all fall. His throat worked, but he nodded, slow, reluctant, resolved. The intercom hissed alive. The captain's voice was taut. They're closing in. New formation. Faster than before. 2 on each flank. Passengers stiffened. Whispers surged. 4 predators now. Maya raised her voice, fierce and unyielding. Then 4 is what we face, and 4 is what we outlast. She braced herself in the aisle, her eyes scanning every row. Remember, they want us afraid. They want us broken. So we give them nothing. We hold, we endure. And when they come close enough, we make them regret it. A beat of silence. Then voices began to rise, a father whispering, We fight. A grandmother nodding, We endure. A soldier growling, We hold the line. The cabin breathed together again, not in terror, but in rhythm. Not passengers, not prey, but defenders. Maya exhaled once, steady and calm, her voice carried like iron wrapped in velvet. They're coming! Let them. Tonight, the hunters learn what it means to be hunted. Outside, the horizon lights grew brighter, closer. The next storm. The night sky split with 4 burning trails. Predators, fast, precise, circling in formation. The next wave had arrived. Passengers saw them too. Gasps rose. Whispers cracked like static. 4 of them. We can't! There's no way! Maya lifted her hand, silencing the cabin. Her stance was steady, her voice sharp. Eyes here! Listen! 4 doesn't change the rule. They still bleed. They still break. And we will outlast them. Her words landed like stone in water, rippling outward. The trembling eased. Breaths steadied. Focus returned. The captain's voice burst through the intercom, taut with strain. They're boxing us in. 2 above, 2 below. Forcing us into a kill box. Passengers panicked, voices colliding. A kill box? We're trapped! They'll fire all at once. Maya cut through the noise, her tone clipped and precise. Then we break their box. Sharp climb, then roll. Make them cross paths. Their precision is their weakness. A tense pause. Then the captain answered. Understood. Engines roared. The plane jolted violently upward. Nose climbing into the dark. Passengers screamed. Bodies pressed into seats. Then the aircraft rolled hard right, banking sharp. Outside, 2 predators swooped closer, too close. Their sleek frames crossed paths, nearly colliding before peeling away. Gasps erupted in the cabin. It worked. Maya steadied herself in the aisle, her voice ringing above the chaos. You see, even predators stumble when you force them off script. Hope flickered again. Fragile, but alive. But the enemy regrouped quickly. Lights flared as 2 missiles streaked from opposite flanks, aimed to converge. The cockpit alarm shrieked. Passengers cried out, clinging to one another. The businessman wailed, "This is the end! 2 from both sides, we're finished!" Maya's reply was a snarl. Not while I breathe. Her eyes locked on the windows, calculating angles, timing each second. Captain, drag low, then snap climb. Force their convergence. They'll miss or collide. The captain hesitated. That dive could rip us apart. Do it, Maya barked. The plane dropped suddenly. A violent plunge. Passengers screamed, oxygen masks swinging wild. Then the engines howled, the jet climbing sharp into the dark. Through the windows, the 2 missiles streaked past each other, missing the fuselage by feet before spiraling off. An eruption of cries filled the cabin, sobs, laughter, disbelief, another miracle, another survival. Maya steadied her breathing, her voice strong. That's 5. 5 they've failed. Remember that number. Passengers repeated it under their breath like a chant. 5, 5, 5. The tall man stared at her, his voice low, reverent. You turned death into strategy. Maya's reply was calm, iron-edged. No, I turned survival into a weapon. That's the only way you win. Jennifer rushed from the cockpit, breathless. Captain says fuel is critical. We can't keep climbing like this. What do we do? Maya's jaw clenched. Then we conserve. Small evasions, short bursts. Make them waste fuel chasing us. She turned to the passengers, her voice rising. This fight isn't about being stronger. It's about lasting longer. And lasting longer is what we do best. The woman with the magazine nodded fiercely. She's right. We've made it this far. We can keep going. Even the businessman, pale and broken, fell silent. His protests had withered into nothing. The intercom crackled again. The captain's voice was grave. They're closing tighter, preparing synchronized strike. All 4. The cabin tensed, terror spiking again. 4 missiles. No room to run. Maya raised her voice, fierce and unyielding. Then we make them pay for every inch, every breath. They think we're prey. But tonight, we teach them the cost of hunting us. Her words carried like fire through the rows. Passengers clenched fists, straightened in seats, braced not just in fear but in defiance. The boy in row 12 whispered, "She said we'll live," and his mother held him close, nodding through tears. Outside, the hunters drew closer, wings glowing, their formation tightening. The storm was about to break. Maya's voice dropped low, calm but searing. Get ready. This is the fight that decides everything. The hunters closed their formation. 4 aircraft circling tighter, wings glowing red against the night. Passengers saw it, and panic spread like wildfire. They're boxing us again. They'll fire all at once. No one survives that, no one! Maya raised her hand, her voice cutting sharp. Silence. The word snapped through the cabin, freezing the fear. Her stance was rigid, her eyes unblinking. This is their last card. 4 at once. They think it ends us. They're wrong. The captain's voice broke over the intercom, tight with dread. 4 missile locks detected. Impact window, 40 seconds. Passengers sobbed, bent forward, clutching children, whispering prayers. The businessman shouted, broken and wild, "You can't stop 4! You've doomed us!" Maya turned, her gaze ice. "You're already dead if you believe that. The rest of us? We fight." Her contempt silenced him, eyes turned back to her, desperate, clinging to every word. She braced herself, gripping the seat back, her voice a deliberate rhythm. 4 missiles, 4 hunters. They want us pinned. But they forgot one thing. Speed kills precision. If we break pattern, if we move off script, their weapons fight each other. Passengers gasped. Jennifer whispered, "You're saying we make them crash again?" Maya nodded, her tone steel. "Exactly. Controlled chaos. We force their order into disorder. That's how prey becomes predator." The captain's voice trembled. "Maya, this maneuver? You're describing a barrel roll at commercial load. The plane could tear apart." Her answer was instant, unflinching. "Or it could live. And so could every soul on board. Do it." A breathless pause. Then the captain answered, "Copy. Tell me when." Passengers stared at her, wide-eyed, trembling. A grandmother whispered, "She's going to roll a passenger plane." Maya's voice thundered, "She's going to save you! Heads down! Brace! Now!" Dozens bent forward, arms locked. The cabin became a single body. Trembling but ready, through the windows, the 4 streaks of fire closed fast. 30 seconds, 25. The alarms screamed. Maya's voice cut through, low but powerful. "Not yet. Not yet." Passengers whimpered, tears spilling, but they obeyed. The tall man muttered, "We'll never make it." Maya snapped, "Shut it. You breathe until I say otherwise." The missiles screamed closer. The businessman sobbed, "She's waiting too long." "Now!" Maya roared. The captain wrenched the yoke. The plane tilted into a savage barrel roll. Engines straining, fuselage groaning. Passengers screamed, bodies pressed against belts, luggage slamming from side to side. Outside, the missiles streaked toward their mark, then overcorrected. Their guidance systems clashed, each chasing heat, each recalibrating. 2 collided in a blinding explosion, shockwave slamming the aircraft. The other 2 swerved wide, streaking harmlessly past. The cabin erupted in cries, screams, sobs, laughter breaking loose all at once. They were alive. Again, Maya steadied herself, panting, but her voice still iron. "That's 7. 7 they've missed, and we're still breathing." Passengers shouted the number back like a chant. 7! 7! 7! Hope surged, fierce and raw. The boy in row 12 whispered through tears. She promised, and she kept it. But Maya's eyes stayed hard. Her voice dropped, sharp enough to cut the chant short. "Listen to me. They'll come again. They won't stop until they burn fuel dry. That's the war we're fighting. Time against fuel. And time belongs to us." The soldiers in the back nodded, faces set, ready. Jennifer wiped her tears, steadying her breath. "You've given them everything you have. But how long can you keep this up?" Maya turned, eyes blazing. "As long as it takes." The businessman slumped, broken, muttering in disbelief. "She's insane, but she's keeping us alive." Passengers ignored him now. They were staring at her as if she were the only anchor in the storm. The intercom hissed alive again. The captain's voice carried awe this time. "Not dread. You bought us another chance. Fuel holding steady. They're regrouping, but ground confirms interceptors are in range. We just need minutes." Gasps rippled through the cabin. "Minutes, just minutes." Maya lifted her chin, her tone cold, commanding. "Then minutes are what we'll fight for. Every second you breathe, you steal from them. And I swear we will make it." Outside, the remaining hunters circled furious, preparing their next strike. Inside, the cabin braced again, not as passengers, but as survivors. Maya's final words cut through the trembling silence, a vow seared into every soul. They wanted us broken. Instead, we're unbreakable. The cabin was a storm of breath and heartbeat. Passengers gasped, sobbed, clutched each other, but beneath the trembling, something new pulsed. Belief. They had survived the impossible. 7 strikes, 7 failures for the hunters. Maya stood steady in the aisle, her chest heaving but her eyes sharp. Her voice rose above the chaos, clipped and strong. 7 times they tried. 7 times we endured. That is not chance. That is strength. The chant began softly. 7. 7. Then louder, spreading row by row. 7. 7. It was not a cheer. It was defiance. Maya lifted her hand, silencing them before belief turned careless. Listen. They're furious now, desperate. That makes them dangerous. Do not relax. Do not celebrate yet. Every second still matters. The captain's voice cut over the intercom, urgent but steadier than before. They're reforming. 3 left. Closing in fast. Ground confirms interceptors inbound. ETA 10 minutes. Passengers exhaled in disbelief. 10 minutes. So close. So far. The tall man muttered, clutching his bag tighter. They'll use everything they have left. They won't stop until I'm gone. Maya's glare snapped to him. Then make yourself useful. Help them brace. Help them fight. You don't get to collapse while others hold the line. His throat tightened, but he nodded, moving shakily into the aisle to assist. Passengers parted for him, watching as his fear bent toward purpose. Jennifer hurried from the cockpit, pale but determined. Captain says they're trying a squeeze, 2 closing high, 1 tailing low. They'll trap us in a vertical box. Maya's reply was instant. Tell him, we break the floor, not the ceiling. Dive hard, then snap, climb past the tail. Force the high 2 to overshoot. Jennifer hesitated. That could black out the passengers. Better black out than burn, Maya snapped. Go, Jennifer relayed. Moments later, the engines howled, the plane plunging nose down. Passengers screamed. Bodies pressed against belts, stomachs in free fall. Then the captain yanked the yoke, the jet climbing sharp. Through the windows, the Predators split, thrown wide as the low flankers scrambled to avoid collision. The trap collapsed. Gasps tore through the cabin. Another miracle, another breath. Maya steadied herself, her voice rising. That's 8. 8 they've failed. Do you understand yet? They're not gods. They're cowards with machines. And machines fail. The passengers clung to her words like armor. The businessman shook his head weakly, his defiance all but gone. She's making them bleed. The woman with the magazine whispered, fierce and trembling. She's more than a soldier. She's the reason we're alive. The boy in row 12 lifted his chin, whispering to his mother. She said we'll live. She was right. But Maya's face stayed hard. Her tone carried no triumph, only fire. Don't mistake survival for victory. We're still in the storm. Eyes sharp. Braces ready. The captain's voice returned, taut but resolute. Interceptors are 4 minutes out. Hold steady. 4 minutes. Passengers exchanged wide, terrified looks. 4 minutes felt like forever. The tall man slumped back into his seat, muttering, They'll spend everything in those 4 minutes. Everything. Maya leaned close, her voice a whisper edged with contempt. Then let them. Because everything won't be enough. Her. Words rippled through the rows. Passengers clenched. Fists. Soldiers in the back tightened. Belts. Even the trembling eased into grim resolve. The cabin was no longer prey. It was a fortress waiting for the next blow. Through the windows, the hunters swooped closer, lights burning hotter, wings sharp against the night. They were coming for the final strike. Maya braced herself, her voice rising, sharp and unyielding. This is it, the storm before dawn. Hold fast, do not break. If they want war, we give them war. Passengers bent forward, bracing tight, whispering prayers not in fear but in rhythm with her vow. The boy in row 12 closed his eyes, repeating her words softly. We give them war. The sky outside flared, engines screamed, the hunters dove, and the cabin waited, bound together by one woman's voice, one woman's fire. The sky burned alive again. 3 predators, engines howling, closing in fast. Their formation was tighter, sharper, fueled by fury. This was no longer a hunt. It was execution. Passengers saw the streaks of light. Gasps broke into cries. They're coming straight for us. This is the end. Maya lifted her voice, hard and steady. No, this is their last chance, and they'll waste it just like the rest. Her tone carried authority that cut through the panic. The passengers braced, trembling but obedient. Her words had become instinct, her rhythm their heartbeat. The captain's voice rang over the intercom. Taut with urgency. 3 missile locks. Impact in 20 seconds. What's the call? Maya didn't blink. Split evasion. Hard dive, then left roll. Force the tail to overshoot and break their triangle. A tense pause. Then the captain answered, Copy. Executing. The plane lurched nose down. Engines screaming. Passengers cried out. Oxygen masks swinging. Stomachs pitching. Then the aircraft rolled hard left. A savage tilt that slammed bodies against seatbelts. Through the windows, one predator shot past, overshooting in a blur of light. The triangle broke. Gasps ripped through the cabin. One less angle, one less noose. But the other two held their lock. Twin missiles streaked closer, trails burning white. Maya steadied herself. Voice sharp as a blade. Captain, cut thrust. Dead drop, now, dropping. The engines whined, power vanishing. The plane fell into near silence. A brutal freefall. Passengers screamed, arms clawing at seatbacks. But the missiles streaked overhead, too high. Missing their mark, the aircraft jolted violently as the captain reignited engines. Pulling them out of the dive, bodies slammed back into seats, cries bursting. But they were alive. Maya straightened in the aisle, her voice iron. That's 9. 9 failures. Do you understand yet? We are not theirs to claim. A chant rose, trembling at first, then fierce. 9! 9! 9! Passengers clung to the number like armor. 9 times death had reached for them. 9 times Maya had denied it. The businessman slumped in his seat, whispering brokenly, She's impossible. The woman with the magazine shook her head. No, she's hope. The boy in row 12 lifted his chin, whispering with conviction, She's the reason we're alive. The intercom crackled again. The captain's voice was breathless, edged with awe. Interceptors are less than 3 minutes out. Hold on! Gasps spread through the cabin. 3 minutes. Only 3 minutes. But the tall man's face was pale, his voice hollow. They'll spend everything in those 3 minutes. They'll burn every missile, every shot. They'll risk it all. Maya turned to him, her tone sharp with contempt. Good. Let them. Desperation is sloppy. Sloppy gets broken! Her words sparked something fierce in the passengers. They sat taller, clenched fists, set jaws. Jennifer hurried from the cockpit, eyes wide. They're loading all at once. Full salvo. Captain says this could be everything. The cabin froze, a full salvo. Every weapon fired in one desperate strike. Maya lifted her chin, her voice carrying like fire. Then this is their mistake. They'll gamble everything. We gamble nothing. We endure. And when they fail, when we're still here, we win. The grandmother in row 3 whispered, trembling but steady. She sounds like command. Passengers nodded, murmuring agreement. She wasn't just a passenger anymore. Not to them, not to anyone. The cockpit alarm screamed louder. Red lights flashing, incoming, all of them. Passengers bent forward, bracing tight. Whispering prayers not of fear but of defiance. The chant began again, soft at first. 9. 9. Then louder. 9. 9! Maya steadied her grip on the aisle wall, her voice a final vow. This is it. The storm breaks here. Hold fast. We've stolen every second so far, and we'll steal 3 more. 3 minutes. That's all we need. Through the windows, the sky flared with fire. Dozens of streaks lit the night. The hunters had fired everything. The cabin held its breath. Engines roared. Metal screamed. And Maya's voice cut through it all. Fierce and unyielding. They wanted our fear. We gave them defiance. Now let's make them choke on it. The sky outside ignited. Dozens of streaks tore across the dark. Missiles fanning out like burning arrows. The hunters had emptied everything. A full salvo. Passengers saw it, and panic fractured into screams. They fired everything. There's no way to dodge them all. We're finished! Maya's voice cut like thunder. Silence! The cabin froze, sobs swallowed, eyes wide. She stood in the aisle unshaken, her tone sharp and deliberate. This is not the end. This is their mistake. They fired blind all at once. That means chaos. And chaos is my battlefield. The captain's voice roared over the intercom, urgent, taut. 30 seconds to impact. What's the move? Maya's gaze locked forward, her words rapid and clipped. Split maneuvers. Cut thrust, then stagger climb, then dive. Force the salvo to scatter. Let them chase ghosts. A beat of hesitation. Then the captain answered, Copy. Executing. Engines whined, power dropping. The aircraft fell into sudden silence as thrust cut. Passengers screamed as the plane dropped into freefall. Stomachs twisting, gravity vanishing. Hold! Maya shouted. Don't fight it! Hold! Then engines roared back. The jet climbed hard. Bodies slammed against seats. Masks swung. Bins rattled. Children cried. Through the windows. Half the missiles overshot, streaking into the night. The cabin gasped. Disbelief rising, but the others corrected course, angling back. Still too many. Dive! Maya thundered. The nose pitched downward. Passengers shrieked as the jet plunged again. Metal shuddering, alarms screaming. Outside, missiles overshot, spiraling wide. Another cluster wasted. The cabin erupted in cries, some terrified. Some joyous. They had dodged the impossible, but 4 missiles remained. Streaking fast, unshaken, too close, too sharp. Maya braced herself, her voice a roar above the chaos. Captain, barrel roll, now! The plane lurched, tilting into a savage spin. Passengers screamed. Bodies pressed sideways, gravity clawing. The fuselage groaned, metal straining under the impossible maneuver. Through the windows, 2 missiles overcorrected, colliding mid-air in a fireball. The shockwave rocked the cabin, bins bursting open, luggage raining down. But they were alive. Only 2 streaks remained. Closing fast, too close! Maya's voice dropped, low and fierce. Last chance! Hard bank, left. Trust me. The captain obeyed. The jet snapped left. Wings tilting vertical. The cabin screamed as bodies pressed against seatbelts, breath stolen by the angle. Outside, the 2 missiles streaked past, missing the fuselage by meters, before detonating harmlessly in the dark. A blinding flash lit the sky. Then silence. Passengers gasped, sobbed, laughed through tears. They had survived. Every missile, every strike. Maya straightened in the aisle. Her breath steady, her voice sharp. That's 10. 10 failures. They threw everything, and we're still here! The cabin erupted into a chant raw and defiant. 10! 10! 10! Tears streamed down faces. But the voices were strong. For the first time, belief outweighed fear. The boy in row 12 clutched his mother's hand, whispering, She promised. She kept it. The tall man sat trembling, staring at her with awe and something like shame. You've outflown them all. I thought no one could. Maya's reply was cold, edged with fire. Never underestimate those who refuse to die. The businessman slumped silent, broken. His doubt had been shattered along with the missiles. Jennifer stumbled from the cockpit, breathless, tears streaming. Captain says, fuel low, but we're clear. Ground confirms, 2 minutes. Interceptors are almost here. Passengers gasped, sobs breaking loose again. 2 minutes. Only 2 minutes. Maya lifted her chin, her voice carrying like a vow. Then we hold 2 more minutes. That's all. You've seen the worst they have. You've seen how they fail. 2 minutes is nothing. 2 minutes is ours! The chant rose again, louder, fiercer. 2 minutes! 2 minutes! The cabin pulsed with unity, every face lit with defiance. Not prey, not passengers, survivors. Outside, the sky glowed faintly. The hunters circled, but their fury had burned out. They had spent everything, and still the prey lived. Maya's voice dropped low, soft but cutting. They wanted our fear. We gave them defiance. Now we wait for the dawn. The cabin shook with ragged breath and trembling relief. Passengers sobbed, some laughing through tears, others staring blankly at the ceiling. They had lived through the impossible. 10 strikes, 10 failures. But the sky was not finished. Out the windows, the predators circled again, wings glowing with rage, empty of missiles, but not empty of hate. Passengers gasped. Panic rising once more. They're still here. They'll ram us. They'll take us down with them. Maya's voice cut sharp, steady as iron. Eyes on me. They failed every weapon. That leaves desperation. And desperation makes them weak. The captain's voice burst through the intercom, tense but controlled. Ground confirms interceptors are 30 seconds out. Hold on. Passengers sobbed in relief. 30 seconds. So close. But 30 seconds can be an eternity. The tall man clutched his bag, voice hollow. They won't wait. They'll try to finish this before help arrives. Maya's gaze cut to him. Cold, contempt curling in her tone. Then let them try. 30 seconds is all I need, the businessman muttered, broken. They'll ram us. Nothing stops that, Maya snapped, her voice a snarl. Fear doesn't stop steel. Discipline does. And discipline is all we've lived by tonight. The passengers nodded. Their trembling steadied by her fire. They were exhausted, but they believed. Outside, one predator broke formation. Nose angling straight at the fuselage, gasps filled the cabin. It's coming right at us. They're going to crash us. Maya braced herself, her voice fierce and unyielding. Captain, hard bank left, then dive. Force his angle shallow. He misses or he dies alone. The engine screamed as the jet snapped left. Then plunged. Passengers screamed, pressed against belts. Through the windows. The predator roared past, missing by meters. Its frame wobbling in the turbulence. Gasps tore through the rows. The predator corrected. Circling back, but its fury had betrayed precision. Another hunter dove in. Engines flaring, aiming for the wing. Jennifer cried out. They're trying to shear us! Maya roared. Roll right, hard! The jet rolled, tilting savage. Passengers shrieked, luggage slamming across aisles. The predator swooped close, clipping turbulence. Forced wide. 2 strikes denied. Passengers erupted in disbelief. She's making them miss even without missiles. She's turning their fury against them. The chant began again, ragged but fierce. 11, 11! Maya steadied herself in the aisle, her voice cold, steady. Count every failure. Count every second. That's how we win. Then, the sky split. New lights streaked across the horizon. Flares, contrails, the interceptors. Gasps and sobs broke loose. They're here. We're saved! The cockpit intercom rang with sudden relief. Friendly aircraft on station. They've locked the hunters. We're clear. Passengers wept openly now, hands clasped. Voices trembling in gratitude. Some hugged strangers, some dropped their heads into shaking palms. Maya stood still, her face unreadable, eyes fixed on the window. The predators scattered, fleeing the interceptors. The sky opened wide again. Jennifer stumbled into the aisle, tears streaming. You did it. You saved them. Passengers echoed her, voices overlapping. She saved us. She fought for us. She never broke. Even the boy in row 12 whispered. She was our pilot. But Maya's eyes stayed cold. Her voice, when it came, was soft, edged with steel. No, I wasn't your pilot. I was your reminder. That fear doesn't own you. Not ever. The cabin quieted, her words sinking deep, heavier than applause. The tall man stared at her, eyes hollow, whispering, You're the reason they failed. But you'll never forgive me. Will you? Maya's gaze cut through him, sharp as glass. I don't need to forgive you. I need you to remember what we endured tonight. That's on your conscience forever. He dropped his eyes, broken. The grandmother in row 3 whispered softly, She saved us all, and she won't even take credit. But Maya didn't answer. Her silence was the truth. The captain's voice returned. Calmer now. Ladies and gentlemen, we are secure, escorted, safe. Gasps of relief turned to exhausted sobs. The storm was ending. Maya sank into a seat near the front, her body trembling now that the battle had passed. Her voice dropped. Soft, almost to herself. They wanted us broken. Instead, we endured, and that is victory. Silence pressed over the cabin, heavier than the roar of engines. Passengers wept into their hands, clutched strangers, whispered prayers. They were alive. The predators had fled. The sky was theirs again, but survival carried its own weight. Jennifer moved down the aisle, handing water bottles with trembling hands. Her eyes darted to Maya, as if anchoring herself to the woman who had kept them breathing. The businessman slumped in his seat. "Broken," his voice cracked, weak. You did it. You saved us. I was wrong." Maya turned her head, gaze cold. Her voice was sharp, edged with disdain. "You weren't wrong about me. You were wrong about yourself. You thought fear was your shield. It was your chain." He dropped his eyes, too hollow to reply. The tall man gripped his bag tighter, sweat dripping down his face. When he spoke, his voice was low, almost reverent. "They'll never forgive me for what I did. But you made them fail. You made them bleed. Why?" Maya's stare pierced him, hard as glass. "Because survival isn't mercy. It's defiance. And tonight wasn't about you. It was about every soul they thought they could erase." He swallowed hard, shame bending his shoulders. Passengers listened in silence, every word pressing deeper. Maya's contempt wasn't cruelty. It was truth. The boy in row 12 tugged at his mother's sleeve, whispering. She kept her promise. His mother nodded through tears, pulling him close. "Yes, baby." She did. The grandmother in row 3 lifted her voice, soft but steady. "She led us when no one else could. That's what we'll remember." Maya turned slowly, her gaze sweeping the cabin. Faces met her eyes, some tear-streaked, some hollow, all alive. Her voice dropped, deliberate, heavy. "Remember this. You were not saved. You saved yourselves. Every order followed, every second endured. That was you. Don't ever forget the strength you carried tonight." Passengers shifted, stunned. Not prey, not passengers, survivors. Jennifer stepped forward, her hands trembling but her voice firm. "Then what are you? If not our savior, then what?" Maya's answer was quiet, but it cut through every ear. "I am the voice you already had inside you, the one you tried to bury under fear. I just reminded you it was there." The cabin fell into a heavy silence. Passengers bowed their heads, some sobbing, some nodding. The truth stung, but it also healed. The intercom buzzed, the captain's tone steadier now. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are under full escort. No further threats detected. Prepare for controlled descent." Relief swept the cabin. Sobs broke free. Laughter spilled out. Exhausted, trembling joy at the words they thought they'd never hear. Descent. But Maya didn't smile. Her eyes stayed locked on the window. The empty night beyond. Her voice slipped out, low and fierce. "They'll try again. Not here. Not now. But somewhere. That's what they do. That's what they've always done." The woman with the magazine whispered, almost afraid. "Then who will stop them?" Maya's gaze turned hard, her tone sharp with fire. "Whoever remembers tonight. Whoever refuses to kneel. That's how darkness loses, when even one person says no." The passengers sat in silence, her words hanging like a vow. The engines hummed steady. The interceptors flanked them on both sides. Protective, watchful. The worst had passed, but the story was not over. Maya leaned back, exhaustion pulling at her shoulders, but her voice stayed sharp. Tonight wasn't about victory. It was about endurance. That's what justice looks like. Not glory, not revenge. Endurance, Jennifer whispered, her voice breaking. Endurance kept us alive. You kept us alive. Maya shook her head slowly. You kept each other alive. Never forget that. Her words wrapped around them like armor. Passengers breathed easier, not because the danger was gone, but because they understood what it meant to endure. The grandmother bowed her head, whispering softly, "Not prey, survivors." The chant started again, weak but growing. Survivors, survivors. It filled the cabin, not as defiance now, but as truth. Maya closed her eyes, letting the word echo. Her body trembled. her breath ragged, but her spirit stood tall. The predators had failed. The passengers had endured, and endurance had carried them through the fire. The nose of the plane tilted downward. Gentle this time. Engines hummed steady. No alarms. No screams of warning. For the first time in hours, the descent was real. Passengers clutched armrests, but not in terror. This time it was relief, an almost unbearable weight lifting from their chests. Tears streamed freely. Some prayed. Some laughed through the exhaustion. Some just stared, empty, unable to believe they were still breathing. Maya sat near the front, her body trembling now that the fight had passed. She leaned against the aisle wall, jaw clenched, every muscle tight. Jennifer knelt beside her, offering water, whispering, "You don't have to carry it alone anymore. It's over." Maya shook her head slowly. Her voice was soft, low, edged with fire. "No, it's not over. Not for me. It never is." Jennifer's eyes burned, searching her face. Then what was it for? Why keep fighting when no one would have? Blamed you for staying silent? Maya's gaze turned sharp, her words clipped. Because silence kills. That's what they count on. That's how predators thrive. Tonight wasn't survival. It was refusal. Her words pressed into the cabin, heavy as truth. Passengers nearby leaned closer, listening. Even broken, she still commanded the air. The businessman shifted, pale, eyes hollow, his voice cracked. "I mocked you, doubted you, cursed you, and still, you saved me." "Why?" Maya's eyes locked on him, contempt sharp. "I didn't save you. You're still alive because others braced, others followed, others fought. You rode their strength. Remember that when you look in a mirror." He dropped his gaze, shamed into silence. The tall man gripped his bag tighter, voice ragged. "They were after me. Everyone knows it. You risked them all because of me. Why didn't you throw me to them?" Maya leaned forward, her voice cold as steel. "Because that's what they wanted. They wanted you isolated, wanted us divided. But tonight proved something. They can't win when we refuse to tear each other apart." Her words struck the cabin like fire. Passengers nodded, tears streaking faces, hands reaching across aisles to clasp. "Unity born in the storm," the boy in row 12 whispered into his mother's sleeve. "She said we saved ourselves. She's right." His mother kissed his hair, whispering back. "She showed us how." The grandmother in row 3 lifted her voice, frail but steady. "She carried us through the fire. Even if she won't claim it, we'll never forget." Maya turned, her eyes sweeping the rows. Her voice dropped low, heavy with exhaustion but still edged with iron. "Forget me. Remember yourselves. Remember what you endured. That's the only thing that matters." The chant rose again, soft but unyielding. "Survivors! Survivors!" The cabin joined, not as passengers, not as victims, but as a chorus of endurance. The word filled the air, heavy with defiance. Maya closed her eyes, letting it wash over her. Her body shook, her breath ragged, but she didn't silence them. For once, she let them own it. The intercom buzzed, the captain's voice calm now, steady. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are on final approach. Escort remains with us. Prepare for landing." Gasps filled the cabin. Landing. The word broke whatever restraint remained. Passengers sobbed, hugged, whispered thanks into trembling hands. Jennifer's voice cracked as she looked at Maya. "They'll never know what you did tonight. Not out there. Not the way we know it." Maya's reply was cold, almost bitter. "They don't need to know. Justice isn't applause, it's survival, it's endurance. It's one more day the enemy doesn't win." Her words silenced Jennifer, struck deep in every ear that caught them. Outside, city lights flickered below, small, fragile, alive. The ground they thought they'd never see again. The businessman whispered, "Broken. Home." The woman with the magazine squeezed his arm, shaking her head. No, not home. A second chance. Don't waste it. Passengers nodded, their voices rising in murmurs of agreement. Maya stayed quiet, her eyes locked on the window, the lights below. Her jaw was tight, her body rigid. But deep in her gaze was something no predator could take: endurance. The runway lights glowed ahead, stretching like a path through the night. The aircraft lowered, wheels groaning, flaps tilting wide. Engines rumbled steady, controlled, calm, certain. Passengers held their breath, gripping seats. Some prayed aloud. Some whispered to children. Some just stared at the lights, as if afraid they'd vanish. Maya sat rigid in her seat, hands tight against her knees. Her body trembled, her breath shallow, but her eyes never left the window. For hours she had been steel. Now, at the end, she let the cracks show. Jennifer crouched beside her, voice hushed. "You can breathe now. It's almost over." Maya shook her head, voice low, hard. "Almost isn't enough. Not until wheels touch ground." The captain's voice came over the intercom, steady but taut. "Final descent. Brace positions for landing." Passengers bent forward, arms locked, but this time, it wasn't terror. It was ritual. It was unity. The aircraft sank lower, lights rushing closer. The ground loomed, engines roared, and then impact. A violent jolt. Wheels screeched. The fuselage rattled as the plane bounced once, then steadied, racing along the runway. Screams broke into sobs, sobs into laughter. Passengers lifted their heads, tears streaming, clutching strangers. They were down. They were safe. The engines slowed, the aircraft coasting to a halt. The cabin erupted in cries, cheers, prayers. Relief crashed through the rows like a wave. Maya exhaled, slow and heavy, her hands trembling against her knees. She didn't cheer. She didn't weep. She just whispered, "Endure. Always endure." Jennifer gripped her hand, eyes wet. "They'll never forget what you did." Maya's reply was sharp, almost bitter. "They shouldn't remember me. They should remember themselves, what they carried, what they survived." The tall man stood shakily, clutching his bag. His voice was hoarse, broken. "You saved me when you had every reason to let me go. I don't deserve it. I never will." Maya rose slowly, her eyes cold. "No, you don't. But justice isn't about what we deserve. It's about what we refuse to lose. Tonight, I refuse to lose them." Her words struck the cabin like a hammer. Passengers fell silent, eyes on her, tears streaming. Not because she demanded it. Because she was right. The businessman wiped his face, his voice weak. "I mocked you. I doubted you. I cursed you. And still, I lived because of you." Maya's gaze cut through him, contempt sharp. "You lived because others believed when you wouldn't. Don't mistake their strength for your survival." He bowed his head, shamed into silence. The grandmother in row 3 spoke softly, her voice trembling but strong. "You were more than a voice. You were our will when ours was gone. We'll never forget that." Maya turned away, her voice low. "Then make it mean something. Live like it mattered." Outside, flashing lights gathered along the runway. Interceptors streaked overhead, their silhouettes sharp against the dawn. Rescue vehicles rolled closer, headlights cutting across the night. Passengers clung to each other, sobbing, whispering thanks. But all eyes returned to her, the woman who had turned fear into defiance, the woman who had refused to break. The boy in row 12 tugged at his mother's sleeve, whispering loud enough for all to hear. She was our pilot. The cabin fell silent at his words. Dozens of faces turned, nodding through tears. Not a pilot by title, but by truth. Maya closed her eyes, exhaling slowly. She didn't correct him. She didn't deny it, because for one night, She had been. The cabin doors hissed open. Cold air swept inside, sharp and clean. First responders shouted orders, climbing aboard, but for the passengers, the storm was already over. They had survived, not as prey, not as victims, but as something more. Maya stood steady now, her eyes scanning the rows one last time. Her voice carried like a vow, low but unyielding. Remember this night. Remember that fear is not the end. Endurance is. Justice is. That's how you live. Passengers bowed their heads, whispers rising. Endure. Endure. The chant carried into the dawn. Not defiance now, but truth. Maya stepped off the plane, the cold air wrapping around her. Her body trembled. Her spirit burned. She had given them survival. They had given her proof. Endurance was enough, and endurance would always be. The dawn spread pale light across the tarmac. The aircraft sat heavy, scarred by turbulence and fire, but whole. Alive. Passengers filed out, some leaning on medics, some clutching strangers' hands, some just staring at the sky. Every step on solid ground was a miracle. Reporters crowded behind barricades. Cameras flashed, questions shouted. Were you afraid? How did you survive? Who saved you? Passengers shook their heads, too raw to answer. Some pointed back toward the plane. Others just whispered a single word. Endurance. Maya walked last. Her stride steady despite trembling legs. Her face was pale, her jaw tight, her eyes hollow from the weight of what had passed. She ignored the cameras, ignored the shouts. Justice didn't need microphones. Justice only needed truth. Jennifer hurried after her. Voice breaking. They'll tell your story. They'll call you a hero. Maya stopped, turned, her gaze sharp. Her words were low, deliberate, each one cut clean. I am not a hero. I am a reminder. Fear doesn't own us unless we surrender to it. Tonight, they didn't. That's the story. Jennifer's breath hitched. Tears spilling, she nodded, because there was nothing else to say. The businessman stumbled past. Pale and broken, he muttered, eyes on the ground. I lived, but I'll never escape what I said. What I believed. Maya's reply was cold, sharp. Then don't escape it. Carry it. Let it burn until it changes you. The tall man stopped near her, clutching his bag. His voice trembled. You fought for me when you could have sacrificed me. Why? Her gaze was hard, her voice edged with scorn. Because you were never the point. The point was refusing to be broken, even for you. He dropped his head, ashamed, and walked on. The grandmother shuffled forward, leaning on her cane. Her voice was fragile but fierce. You carried us. When we were ready to fall, you stood. Don't ever tell me you weren't a hero. Maya shook her head slowly. Her reply was quiet, almost tender, but unyielding. Heroes die for glory. Survivors live for truth. Tonight we lived. The grandmother kissed her hand and moved on, whispering, Then we'll remember you as both. Maya turned her eyes back to the horizon, where the sky burned soft with morning light. She didn't answer. The boy in row 12 broke free from his mother's hand, running to her side. His voice was small but sure. You promised we'd live, and we did. That makes you our pilot. The cabin's chant seemed to echo again in that single word. Pilot. Not by uniform, not by rank, but by truth. Maya knelt, placing her hand gently on his shoulder. Her voice softened, paced like a vow. Then remember this, little one. You were your own pilot tonight. All of you were. Never forget that. The boy nodded fiercely. Tears in his eyes, he ran back to his mother, whispering, She said we did it ourselves. And maybe that was the truth. The reporters shouted again, desperate for answers. What happened up there? Who led you? Was it luck? Passengers turned to each other, their voices rising together. It wasn't luck. It was endurance. We survived. The word spread, echoing louder, carried into every microphone. Not Maya's name, not titles, just the truth. Survivors. Maya walked away from the cameras, from the crowd, from the storm. Her voice slipped low, almost to herself but clear enough to carry. They wanted us broken. Instead, we endured. And endurance is justice. The words lingered in the air, heavier than the dawn, because justice isn't always a verdict. It isn't always applause. Sometimes justice is simply breath. One more day. Denied to the hand that wanted to steal it, the passengers carried that truth into their lives. The boy would grow with it, whispering to himself in fear. Endure, the grandmother would tell her family. We lived because we held together. The businessman would never escape his shame, but he would never again mock survival. The tall man would carry guilt heavier than his bag, but also the memory that strangers had refused to sacrifice him. And Maya? She would walk on, scarred, silent, unclaimed by titles, because her fight had never been for glory. It had always been for endurance, for justice in the form of survival. And that was enough.